Tonight's broadcast of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN. It's time to play the game once again. The Sunday League returns for round 8 in 2026. As always, I am Regan Clark. You join us right here into the final 3 rounds of this fantastic championship right here from the home of the South African Grand Prix in wet and wild conditions out of the Grand Prix circuit Kyalami. Just on the outskirts of Johannesburg, South Africa, and founded in 1961, the circuit in the modern day is 16 miles and 16 turns, I should say, and 2.8 miles. That's 4.5 kilometers of FIA Grade 2. Apologies for the interruption there. 2.8 miles and 16 turns of FIA Grade 2. Of course, home of the, or I suppose I should say, former home of the South African Grand Prix in the modern day, hosts the landmark event, the Kyalami 9 Hours. Today, it hosts round 8 of Season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League. Taking a look at where things stand, those blue events on the right-hand side of Season 4's calendar represent events that were delayed because of a massive technical wave of issues just after round 5 of the championship. It forced everything back a few and ultimately gave us 3 rounds into the new year of 2026. We're here in Kyalami for an endurance race today. That's 90 minutes of racing set to follow, and then up to Laguna Seca for the last double sprint race of the season and the penultimate round of Season 4. And then we get back to Silverstone like we did back in Season 3, this time on schedule to round things out on the 18th of January. We're on board at the moment with Stefan Nicolai in what look to be very wet and wild conditions, all things considered, here in Kyalami. And this has definitely proven to be quite a wedge in terms of vehicle performance and driver performance alike heading into these last 3 rounds, because a lot of drivers were entering this round hoping for dry weather, much like what we saw out of Oulton Park, albeit that was still an incredibly chaotic race as it came to be out through round 7. Taking a look at balance of performance today before we get on to the session itinerary at hand, with 6.5 minutes left to go in free practice, we see as the following there. Aston Martin with 40 kilos reduced from the V12 Vantage, Lexus with 34 kilos reduced, and Bentley with 13. Then it's more minor changes for, Lamborghini and Mercedes, a single kilo off of the Huracan and 3 kilos on to the AMG. You'll find Ferrari dead level there, no loss and no gain on the 296. Then for Porsche, it's 4 kilos on. BMW with 7 kilos on as well. And then the 2 heavyweights for this race, McLaren on the screen at the moment, the number 5 McLaren of Stefan Nicolai, and Ford, as always, at the bottom end there, short end of the stick for the Performance Mustang Mark 7. Well, it's going to be a rather interesting re-entry than a baptism. I was going to say by fire, but I really don't think one could sustain in such wet conditions as these. It's going to make for an exciting session to follow. Let's get on to the session itinerary and then the discussion of the championship standings. Taking a look at the regs today, we're in the midst of 10 minutes of free practice. Then coming up is 20 minutes of qualifying and then 90 minutes of racing. 1 mandatory pit stop with open fuel time. That's about 3.2 seconds minimum for round 8 of the championship. On to the discussion then of the championship standings, and starting things off with the rookies. We take a look here as William Bajor extends their lead over Sam Angel in 2nd. Zolt Beefgartner maintains position from 3rd, and Stefan Nicolai minor gain from 4th position. Josh Welbelow is set to drop points here by the looks of things as he has swapped from McLaren to BMW, the points reflecting before that change when he had 128 points. That'll push JM Quito into the top 5 when we get to the penultimate round in Monterey County, California. He's currently 6th place in the championship so far. Brooklyn Donkin, a very late entry into the championship, is only 4 points off of that now preliminary top 5 with his Ford Mustang. Alan Alexander, another Euro Titans endurance driver, finds himself 8th place and ahead of Taylor Wolford with VEC Esports. They're 9th place, and Carl Martel with Malwa Racing in the top 10. Taking a look into the Teams Championship, we find a interesting scope here as Velocity Racing Team continue to lead the charge over Malwa Racing. The gap very, very large indeed, somewhere in the ballpark of about, looking at it here, 45 points, I want to say, in and around that range. So very, actually, it could be 35 points thereabouts. And Malwa Racing currently 2nd. Bear in mind, they're the defending Teams champions And moreover, for the Velocity Racing team, all of those points you see there, all 333, is carried upon the shoulders of a single driver, that being Melvin Milliston, the only representative so far in Season 4 of the Velocity Racing team. 5-Star Esports maintains a podium position, not too far off a shout of taking second away from Malwar Racing, but they've got much more ample company in the competition for the last of those podiums. Euro Titans Endurance a single point away with 268 points to their name. VEC Esports takes up the mantle of the top 5 as Exclusive Esports drops out of competition. We're not exactly told why that is. It could be something to do with more recent announcements that will come through in a moment's time. Hokianos Motorsports in 6th place then with 64 points. Fats GT upon their baptism by fire in Alton Park makes 7th in the team's championship ahead of Nexus GT in 8th. All right, then on to the real topic at hand, getting back to the main feed here and looking at the overall championship standings. Melvin Milliston leads by a landslide here. Now, bear in mind, the current prerequisite to lead the championship and win it right here and now is 192 points. He leads by 133 to LeBay in 2nd. Van Veltzen, 3rd place ahead of George Todd in 4th. William Bajor in 5th place overall in his rookie season. That is some phenomenal performance by VEC Esports as number 333. James Mason in 6th place ahead of Sam Angel in 7th. Ben Cheeseman in 8th place. Zolt Beefgartner in 9th place to round out the top 10. Then we find Tyler Vermack, who now rejoins the charts here in this championship after most speculations had him off of the charts for the remainder of the season. We've been given a shock announcement, however, by Vermack, and where better for him to have made the announcement than at what is this, effectively his home race. If we can go and locate the Lamborghini at this time, Tyler Vermack, who currently leads this practice session, is finally back into the Sunday League. He spoke with us not too long ago saying that it would be considering his options coming back into Season 5, then made a sudden decision to come back in as early as this round onwards. Now we see him join the ranks of Lamborghini's Squadra Corse lineup with the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2. Now, this marks the 8th unique manufacturer the South African talent has competed for in the last 3 seasons after Ferrari, Ford, Aston Martin, McLaren, Honda, BMW and Porsche. He had sizable movement over Season 2 alone. As a matter of fact, we still have the graphic back from Season 2, and this really did go to show he's been sampling a lot of different plates here when it comes to what is the perfect recipe, what is the secret formula, as it were, for success in the Sunday League. And now he likes to sort of vie his chances with Lamborghini. The reasoning behind that, as he told us, was that it has a lot of the same strengths as the McLaren 720S, minus that less than beneficial balance of performance. Of course, we saw Lamborghini second heaviest in class for this race. Wasn't necessarily the gamble Vermack was hoping for with only a single kilo off the Huracan in BOP standings today. I'm not entirely sure, but he's still fastest in this free practice session. Taking a look at where that puts him at the moment, that's nearly 3/10 up the road off of a former teammate of his in his brief time with Malwar Racing. Christian LeBay, however, makes 2nd place. George Todd in 3rd with 5-Star Esports, Brooklyn Donkin 4th, Levi Warner in 5th, Van Veltzen in 6th, Nikolai 7th, and Wolford in 8th, Keto 9th, Jenkins 10th, Poulan 11th, Wellbeloved in 12th, Veldkamp 13th, and Hart in 14th. Something that definitely does cross one's mind at the moment is Melvin Milliston is not here. And I can't actually remember for the life of me as to why that is. It might be a case that he might actually be away on holiday. I really do seem to remember him mentioning something along those lines. In his place, though, we do have a brand new driver to discuss. You can see there, in a striking resemblance to the other Porsche from the Euro Titans lineup, we find Ben Meredith in the 317. Of course, he and Alan Alexander put on one hell of a show in Silverstone a few weeks before the end of 2025 at the 6 Hours of Silverstone. Sadly, that glitch took them out of competitive form, ultimately giving rise to the 2-horse race between 5-Star and Exclusive that resulted in yet another victory for the 788 team. Just see here with George Todd recently having moved up to 2nd place. It is looking close amidst the wet and wild conditions offered up here in Kyalami. As you see towards the back of the top 5, Brooklyn Donkin and Levi Warner, the 2 Fords towards the back of the pack here. Fats GT looking to come with a vengeance in these final 3 rounds. I think we could realistically expect much more lively competition from them in the Teams Championship next season. Donkin fastest, though, right at the very end by a single 100th over Vermack. This could be a rather interesting one. And today is a very, very special day as well in Sunday League history, as after all of the seasons being ran at the moment, event, we find ourselves onto race number 40 here in the first Sunday League race of 2026. George Todd, still the chances here, needs 193 thousandths for the fastest, needs 183 thousandths to equalise, I believe, there with Tyler Vermack. As for Levi Warner as well, let's not count him out. He's out through Ingwe Curve. We'll get a full rundown of the track as well when we discuss those qualifying predictions. Down towards line goes Warner from 5th place and stays there with an improvement from current position, but stays 5th. He did have an improvement on time, I should say there. Todd down towards the line, stays 3rd at the end of free practice. Great hustle, though, for the number 12. It's looking very optimistic between these three here, Donkin, Vermack and Todd, to be potential race winners here in Kyalami. Let's not speak too soon on that, because we have got 20 minutes of qualifying to play with. You can see first out of the pits there, that was the Mercedes of Van Veltzen. We also saw Brooklyn Donkin get a very early leave of it, but leading that charge, that looks to be Zolt Beefgartner. So let's go and catch on board then with the drivers making their way out of the pits. We just see Vermack leaving there, but there is Zolt Beefgartner, the first driver out of the pit lane here. We'll get a full rundown of the track after the qualifying predictions and taking a look at them. It gave us quite a varied data set, and this was quite obvious when you consider that it's been raining and it has also had noticeable periods of dry weather in the run-up towards today's race. It has been very changeable conditions in the server throughout the winter break, and that has given drivers ample opportunity to experiment with both dry and mostly wet setups. We just saw there a little bit of connection trouble for the 599. We're back on board with him. And what that does give us is a very bizarre top 10 look here. Ben Cheeseman looking at the, according to the data here, pole position, but with a 141.8 in his iron sights. In weather like this, highly unlikely, all things considered. Nonetheless, Warner would have been predicted 2nd in drier conditions, Walford 3rd, Sanchez 4th, and you can start to see down the list where the conditions of the track have started noticeably dropping off. It goes out past the top 50% there with Kyle Jenkins 5th place. Then you see the time start to massively drop down, half a second there between Jenkins and Belder. Beefgartner really struggling for connection there, so we're going to hop on board with the car right behind him. That's going to be Cas Van Veltzen with Mercedes AMG. Looking further down the order, JM Quito, 7th place, Dan Junior Poulin in 8th. And then you really see the times nosedive, because this is when it's been in conditions much similar to today. Spencer Brown 9th and Carl Martel 10th, with a factor of about 5 and then an additional 3 seconds over one another. So we're on board with Van Veltzen. We'd like to be on board with Beefgartner, but because of those connection issues, he keeps kicking us away from the camera. Let's stay on board with the car right behind him. We'll get clear line of sight on that Lexus as we catch on board with Cas Van Veltzen, the unofficial tour guide here for round 8 in Kyalami. Beginning the run down through turn 1 at the kink almost immediately on the run into a heavy braking zone and the first of our major overtaking opportunities into the very wide run into turn 2 at Crowthorne's corner. Then immediately up through turns 3 and 4, this uphill chicane at the Juxgay sweep brings us into Barbecue, and we've seen plenty of side-by-side moves along this area of the track, noticeably around the sort of first half of the race, and then in these more confined battles we see later down the line. With 90 minutes of racing to follow today, there is ample opportunity throughout for battling such as that. Out through Sunset at turn 6. This is another major run-up spot in towards an overtaking zone here as we sweep out to the right-hand side. Now, drivers can run the risk of sweeping to the left and going up the inside here at Clubhouse at turn 7. Down towards the S's, we can still see Beefgartner up in front. We'll be sampling his times as the benchmark. Van Veltzen will be chasing on that time as we make our way down through the S's. We do actually have the data for once. Very rarely is it where ACC manages to pick up on the data we want to put down here. In through to Lurkop at turn 10 and 11. Another overtaking spot for those who dare win on the run up the inside towards turn 10. We've seen it attempted very rarely. Does it go well? In through turn 12 at Mineshaft. Down towards Crocodiles, turns 13 and 14, another overtaking spot. And this is why Kyalami is so favoured as one of the premier endurance destinations. It's ample opportunities throughout for side-by-side battling. The most feared corner of this track, we've just gone through there, out through Cheetah Curve. You get up on the curb on the inside and it will kick very hard, like an angry mule we've seen before in the past. Out through Ingwe Curve then, at turn 16, Zolt Beefgartner to be the baseline time here in qualifying. We watch with Van Veltzen as he goes fastest. From behind him, we see Brooklyn Donkin, second fastest. Then from behind them, we see the arrival of one of the BMWs. That's Josh Wellbeloved moving away from McLaren. He was fourth, now drops down to fifth. Stefan Nikolai takes up the mantle of fourth place. William Bajor fastest. We see behind him there Spencer Brown, second fastest with Fats GT Ferrari. Coming to the line, by looks of it, there is the 40... I was trying to catch on with it there, but sadly, I think we've missed it to the line. That was Ben Hart in the number 40, the number 69 also having crossed the line a moment ago, and that was Levi Warner of Fats GT, now up to the fastest time. 119 coming to the line. Let's see if we can intercept Christian Lebay of Malwar Racing. Now, he was looking very hopeful coming into this round, was inside of that top three towards the end of free practice. Only 7th on his first time, though. Behind him, we can see Sergio Belda with Holkianos starting another flying lap. Nearest to the line on a valid flying lap, Dan Junior Poulon with Ford. We've seen him over on the Triple Crown Enduro Series. We covered the season finale for that just yesterday gone in his time with Lamborghini. In Ford, though, he's 13th. Behind him, his teammate there, Andrew Veldkamp of Malwar Racing. Number 91 having crossed the line a moment ago. That was one of the Holkianos cars. Let's see if we can go and find them on the timing charts here. And that would have been Ivan Sanchez. We also saw times on the charts there. The first times out of Tyler Vermaak, and it's 2.687 seconds away from the fastest time of the session. Not the start he was hoping for, but we know he has the pace for it. Right now, for him, you can see, it's a case of navigating traffic, and he is running into some trouble in terms of stopping power. Now, we can definitely suggest that this has not been made all the more easier for him in case of the weather. He's got plenty of time, though. New fastest time by Zolt Beefgartner, a 1:46.587. Nearly a whole half of a second up from Levi Warner. Otherwise, you'd be staring down the sights of a Ford 123. George Todd says no thank you, because now it's a Ford 345. Bajor likes to have a bit of a rebuttal with him there, as he now goes up to second fastest. Spencer Brown, third fastest. Has this been the opportunity that Fats GT has been waiting for here? They had a decent opening qualifier that turned into a very spotty race for them in round 7. Here into round 8, though, Fats GT's coming with a vengeance, and namely there from Levi Warner, 13 thousandths off of the fastest time as he crossed the line a moment ago. Just under 14 minutes left to go. We've burnt into just more than 5 of these 20 minutes of qualifying available. Right now, you can see Fats GT and VEC Esports are not leaving anything up to scratch here inside of the top 5. They're flanked on either side here by Zolt Beefgartner, competing as a privateer in the rookies division. No assigned team for the 599, though we do know he shares connections with the Tempest Motorsports team, a privateer mark in the console endurance series. That's returning at the end of the month, and also briefly was there flanked at the back by George Todd, but he's lost out that 5th place position to Alan Alexander of Euro Titans Endurance, now up to 5th place. To give some understanding for what the colours here mean on the placards, the red placards you see here, the red numbers, I suppose, to make more sense of it, are your rookies. That's the drivers who are competing for their first season in the Sunday League. That is not a reflection of their skill, as evidenced there by the entirety of the top 5 being quote-unquote rookies. This is their first season in the Sunday League. White markers are for ones who are considered quote-unquote pros. That's people who have been here for more than a season. And then the silvers are our reserve drivers. So in the case of Ben Meredith, he was signed up, but because the sign-up lists are fully maxed out, it was a case where if a slot could be found, he could hop in and come and play. And play he shall, because he's looking at the potential chances here of a top 10 start in his first ever qualifying session in the Sunday League. Vermaak now 3rd fastest, dead on a 10th away from the fastest time here. It's a 3-way battle between Ford, Lexus and Lamborghini here in Kyalami. The stakes could not be higher for Vermaak. It's his home race here. Proudly flying the flag of South Africa. He wants to win here. It's been quite some time. Looking back through the previous wins of this season since Vermaak took a race win, that would have been back in round 1 in Indianapolis in his time with Ford. Moreover, just before his departure, before the midway of the season, he floated the idea of competing with Porsche, did considerable amounts of testing with them. And also competed for McLaren. But, oh, trouble up in front there. That's Josh Wellbeloved with Nexus GT. New colour scheme for the Nexus GT team as well. Very nearly created a big wipeout past the exit of turns. Looking at it there, that was turn 5, if I'm not mistaken. If not turn 7. Beefgartner still fastest. Levi Warner is gunning for gold here. You can see it's quite the effort out of the 69 at the moment, hunting down by 13 thousandths of a second. Such a tantalizingly close gap between himself and his fellow V8 juggernaut, the Lexus RCF of Zolt Beefgartner. You can see got himself into a bit of trouble out through Cheetah Corner. That will invalidate his time if he was gunning for an improvement. Otherwise, it's of no real loss to him at this time. 11 minutes left to go, coming up towards the halfway mark of what has been a great qualifying session so far in the first Sunday League race of 2026, race number 40 to come up today. The number 420 across the line a moment ago, that was Cas van Veltzen to 9th place on the field. It's going to be curious here for Van Veltzen, still numerically within a chance of fighting for the championship if memory serves correct. Really, looking at it, it's a bit of a two-horse race, and one that would have otherwise been quite one-sided if Milliston were here to fight it. But still, the question therein remains. A driver who has carved out legendary success in the Sunday League, taking a look at the overall win records after round 7, and with the last race just being ran there, Melvin Milliston won in Alton Park and gave him a record total of 14 race wins so far. It would be quite bizarre here with so few amount of rounds left in the championship for the defending Season 3 champ to not make an appearance. But what it has done is it's kicked the gate open here for Christian Lebay, second in the championship, to come and have a go to charge towards his current position. Bear in mind, he's going to need to make a show of things in Laguna Seca. Had he competed in today's round, the earliest opportunity he would have possessed to take the championship before the end of the season for Milliston would have been at least in the second race of 2 next Sunday at round 9. But with Lebay on track and Milliston nowhere to be found, it does leave many questions up in the air. This could make for a very exciting final 2 rounds in the 2 weeks to follow on from today. 9 minutes left to go then in qualifying, and the story still remains the same. Beefgartner leading in qualifying, Warner second, Vermaak third. In the absence then of domination by McLaren's Melvin Milliston, it has left the gates open for quite a few breakout performances here in the Sunday League. Beefgartner definitely among them. Took rookie division wins in Indianapolis as well as various other locations upon his return after a multi-round hiatus in the Sunday League this season, and he's back in action. But this looks to be Beefgartner's first opportunity to take outright race wins given the conditions available to him today. He's already proven it on pace, but with 90 minutes of racing to follow and strategy still in play, can the 599 hack it, or will it be another division win in the rookies? Right now, it could very well be an argument that the rookies will be the ones most often fighting for the race win today, as you find another quote-unquote rookie drive on the front row here. Levi Warner, second place in his second ever race in the Sunday League. After a spotty entry to things in Alton Park just before the end of 2025, he has definitely made quite the turnaround here and is within a chance in the next 8 minutes of taking pole position, but he has got ample competition from behind here. Tyler Vermaak, on his return to the Sunday League with Lamborghini, isn't looking to disappoint in front of the home crowd. He's a single tenth away, but as I say that, a brand new challenger into the mix. Alan Alexander, the wizard on water, as it were, back in Silverstone, makes the fastest time out from thin air here, a 146.530. That is 57 thousandths up the road from Beefgartner. Squashes the gap held between Beefgartner and Warner. That is really blown both of them out of the water here. That is quite something. Checking on for where the nearest drivers are to the line. Levi Warner's just making his way through Cheetah Corner. From behind him, the rookie sensation William Bajor in the 333 VEC Esports Mustang, leading that division championship. He'll be entering the ranks of pro with high honours as we head into Season 5. Down towards the line then goes Warner, but drops down a position because from behind him, William Bajor takes second fastest in the 333, now off from Alexander by 22 thousandths of a second. You're looking at 4 drivers at the front of the pack here, all on their rookie season within a tenth of a second of each other, front to back. Absolutely insane stuff so far. This is going to give us the prelude to one of the greatest performances we have ever seen in Sunday League history on the magnificent race number 40. It's not laid a great precedent at the moment for Vermaak. He's got some work to do here, though the gap looks small on paper, a 157 thousandths of a second gap. That's a little over the human reaction time on average. It is still an insurmountably large gap by comparison to the 4 drivers practically hugging each other's front and rear bumpers here, chain locked together as they make their way down to that checkered line. 6 minutes left to go. Number 19 across the line a moment ago to start another flying lap. That was for Thomas Romano. Now, it was a bit of a mixed bag for Romano. This is, of course, his first race as well in the rookies division. The number 19 with Team Raceline looking to make impressions in the team's championship. And he did have a bit of bother trying to decide upon the vehicle, ultimately landing at the rather unorthodox pick at Honda. Now, previous records had him predicted at potentially going to Ferrari, to I think going to Lamborghini at one point. BMW was floated. But Honda definitely does strike us as an interesting one, so much so that sadly we don't have the data to hand on our graphics, but we can have a little look at what the BOP is concerned with from our sources. Here, taking a look through the BOP listings for Kyalami, the Honda NSX GT3 Evo seen on screen at the moment, will lose 13 kilos. So when you compare that to where the rest of the field's concerned, they're dead level with Bentley, so not too shabby whatsoever. Looking back up towards the front here, Bajor back up to the fastest time by 0.09 of a second. Alexander down to second. Beefgartner relegated to the back of the podium here. Warner in fourth. Vermaak maintains fifth. The bar is being raised here as the track starts to get bedded in more and more. And the Mustang gets to sprint again here in 2026. William Bajor leading the charge now ahead of Porsche and Lexus. Bit of a slide there up in front. Oh, it's for Levi Warner. Into the wall there, down through the S's. On his way up to Lukop. Caught a little bit of the curb there, turned the car in. Very little he could have done past a certain point there. The wet has been rather brutal on drivers already. We saw a few incidents scattered around the track. One very nearly caught up Tyler Vermaak earlier on today when we were following him. But that was a nasty one there for Levi Warner. He'll be keeping extra cautious around that section if the rain is to persist into the upcoming race at about 4 minutes time here. Speaking of, he still maintains fifth position on track. We'll be getting on board though with the number 333 in a moment's time as we take a look around Ingwe Curve down towards the line. Can it be an improvement eyed up here for William Bajor? 130 thousandths of a second, a 10th and 300ths was just forced between himself and Alan Alexander. He drops down to second place and couldn't make up on it on that last run just gone. Vermaak across the line and stays fifth place for the time being. Time is starting to dwindle away here, and things are looking rather dire on this gamble to be with Lamborghini. The 317 of Ben Meredith making his way down towards Ingwe Curve. Following on the trails there, the Mercedes up in front of him. You can see that's Cas van Veltzen. In between the pair of them looks to be Josh Welbelove or Ben Hartz for that matter in the identical set of BMWs from Nexus GT. Across the line, Meredith 9th. 315 of Alan Alexander leading this qualifying session. Down through Ingwe Curve, it's been incredibly strong for him so far. We know what wet weather and the Porsche can do in the hands of the 315, and he extends the margins up to a 146.1. New fastest time there by Alan Alexander. He is setting the bar higher and higher and higher. Can that Porsche be stopped in qualifying today? Nearest on a valid time, the 113 of Kyle Jenkins down towards Ingwe Curve. From behind him, we can also see another one of the 5-star McLarens being Ben Cheeseman. Out through turn 16, down towards the line they go. 13th and 12th so far, scratching at a chance of a top 10 start here in Kyalami. Jenkins didn't find an improvement on that last lap, and it seems to be the same story there for Ben Cheeseman. Plateauing performance in the wet for McLaren. Number 17 across the line a moment ago. That was Brooklyn Donkin, maintains 9th position on the field. The 323 coming to the line. 332, I think that is. No, as a matter of fact, very much so is the triple three, as a matter of fact, not 3-2-3. William Bajor across the line couldn't find an improvement over his current time. Spencer Brown from 8th place across the line and stays 8th there. Taylor Wolford from behind him with VEC Esports Porsche 16th so far. We've just seen there Tyler Vermack second fastest now in his home race. A minute and a half to spare and 135 thousandths away from pole. The number 420 coming to the line. Here comes Cas van Beltsen from 10th on the field. What can the Mercedes do here? Needs about 2/10 on Meredith, and he finds it in that last run just gone. 9th place for the number 420. Now, hang on just a moment. There could be some rebuttal here from Meredith. Across the line he goes. From behind him we see as well is Christian Lebay from 11th. An improvement for the Aston, but not enough to make his way to 10th place at the moment. Finds himself just hanging outside of the top 10 in 11th. George Todd on his way in towards Cheetah. Turn 15 gives rise, to turn 16. $572 thousandths to pole. Can Todd find an improvement into the top 5? Across the line he goes. Was an improvement, but not enough for position. Needs to find an additional, looking at it here, about 45 thousandths of a second over Levi Warner to make the top 5. And this is his last available lap to do so. New flurry of times coming in from behind there. The 1:14 across the line a moment ago. Ben Cheeseman now up to 11th place in the last lap just gone. The number 40 coming across the line a moment ago. Ben Hart with Nexus GT in 20th. Stays 20th there. Just beats the clock and has one more lap to play with. 333 to the line. And William Bajor ends his qualifying, the first qualifying for Sunday League in 2026, in 3rd. Great result so far. And that's going to give him a great start for the race ahead. Nearest to the line, JM Quito of Hokianos Motorsports. Heading down towards turn 16. 14th on the grid at the moment. Solid pace for the Hokianos team. Finds 2 of their drivers so far inside of the top 15. Down towards the line, Quito maintains 14th place. The 599 coming to the line here. We've seen Beef Gardner to be a challenger for pole position throughout qualifying today. Can he make true on it on the last possible run? Across the line, stays in 4th. From behind him as well, Ben Meredith, 10th on the field. Number 54 coming to the line. We're going to try and catch on board with them. That's Josh Wellbeloved of Nexus GT. 19th at the end of qualifying there. The number looking at here, 69, is next to the line. That's Levi Warner. He's had a great second qualifier of the season so far here in round 8. Down towards turn 15. You will have to excuse me for just a moment as well. We'll watch with Warner as he makes his way down towards the line. The 114, the 315, the 17, and the 40 next to follow. And solid turnaround there for Warner, 3rd place. So we end this qualifying session with some major takeaways here. Alexander on pole position. Vermack 2nd, Warner 3rd, Bajor 4th. We'll get into the full grid in a moment's time. Sadly, no news to report today, with the hopes that things are going to start picking up in the next couple of weeks with the reveal of the 2026 grid for Formula 1. And the most exciting announcements are going to be coming from Audi, Sauber and Cadillac. What we do know as well is at the moment, in terms of the global scope of motorsports, the Dakar Rally is underway for 2026. Land Rover having won in the stock category in the prologue with their new Defender. We spoke of that earlier in 2025. Wait for the grid to form up. We find ourselves with very high numbers as we come back into the last 3 rounds of Season 4. 25 cars on the grid today here in a wet and wild Midrand, South Africa. And Alan Alexander will be staring down the sights of 24 drivers, making his way down towards turn 1 and 2 for the first time. In the absence then of the championship lead, it has given rise to a vacant throne occupied by a lot of new and returning faces alike there. Inside of that top six alone, two veterans of last season, George Todd and Tyler Vermack. Then we find a whole swarm of new faces on today's top five. Alan Alexander, Levi Warner, William Bajor and Zolt Beefgartner. Wait for the grid to form up then, taking a little bit longer than usual. Hopefully to see where things go today. Definite predictions then with 90 minutes of racing to follow. Strategy is going to play a heavy hand here if we are set to run into more wet conditions for the race to follow. With the current weather radar, it is showing high unpredictability on conditions. Right now, though, it looks like the wet weather is here to stay. And it is going to be a wet race, at least to start off with, in the opening 30 minutes by minimum here in Kyalami. Looking at what has been a very exciting grid on the first Sunday League race of 2026, it's Alan Alexander and Euro Titans Endurance number 315 on pole position. Tyler Vermack lines up second on his new drive with Lamborghini. Levi Warner in third place ahead of William Bajor in fourth for an all-Ford second row. Fifth place for Zolt Beefgartner and sixth for George Todd. Brooklyn Donkin in seventh with Spencer Brown in eighth. Cass Van Veltzen in ninth and Ben Meredith on his first ever race in 10th place. Ben Cheeseman in 11th place ahead of Christian LeBay in 12th. Kyle Jenkins in 13th with JM Keto 14th. Sergio Belder in 15th place with Stefan Nikolai in 16th. Taylor Wolford in 17th. Dan Junior Poulin in 18th. Joshua Elbelov 19th and Ben Hart in 20th. Ivan Sanchez in 21st. Andrew Veldkamp 22nd. Shahan Karim in 23rd. So the 332 was on this grid, if I'm not mistaken there. Tiago Moreira in 24th. Thomas Romano in 25th. Really, all eyes are on that top five. It's going to be very exciting to see what these drivers can do in the absence of serious heavy hitters like Milliston. This would have possibly been yet another chance for him to take home a race win, but in the absence of the number one, we'll be seeing exactly how things roll out on today's grid for Alan Alexander. He's going toe-to-toe with a driver he's faced on a multitude of occasions before, but never inside of the Sunday League until this season. Moreover, the stakes are incredibly high here. Vermack looking to impress upon his return, and it's going to give him a good prelude run in towards Season 5, I should say, of the Sunday League later down the line in the opening half of 2026. Of course, dates and times have yet to be discussed, but rest assured, it is very, very likely Season 5 will be going ahead. More announcements will be coming out in the next 2 weeks as we get towards the end of Season 4. What a championship it's been so far, but there is still plenty of questions left unanswered. Namely, what can LeBay do now as the front row has been left vacant in the championship standings? He's got an opportunity to gain serious points here up towards Melvin Milliston. Now, it won't be enough for him to overtake in the championship, but it will be enough to do some serious damage by the time we get to Laguna Seca at the penultimate sprint race of the championship. Waiting then as we get on towards the 40-second warning, not long from the 30-second warning when the engines will be fired up on all 25 cars on round 8's grid. Alan Alexander will have the world's weight on his shoulders. We've seen what he can do. He's a wizard with water, and we've seen that wet qualifying has proven to be the secret recipe for Porsche and Euro Titans in the hands of Alexander. Now, to prove a point as well from something we discussed way back when in the 6 Hours of Silverstone on the Console Endurance Series, Alexander was able to do a lot of what he's been able to do, and I believe Meredith as well for the longest time, on controllers. And bear in mind, they are not using an easy-to-adapt-to machine. The Porsche is a polarizing GT3, loved or hated. Very few neutral opinions surround that 992. He's been able to do these times here in a technical track like Kyalami, in a Porsche, in the wet, on a controller, with far fewer degree of control than the drivers who would be competing on rigs several hundred times the price in some extreme cases. We've seen rigs get up there for money, upwards in the thousandths, at the extreme end, tens of thousands for some drivers we've met before. This, however, and unless I'm instructed that he's been using the Elite controller, is setting him back a great total of about 50 British pounds sterling. 52 if you throw in the price of a Red Bull. Down through to turn 2 then. Things are going to be very exciting from that front row. In terms of acceleration, it's a bit of a fair game here with the wet weather being the great equalizer. A lot of eyes are going to be pointed on towards that Porsche. He's got a lot more weight over the rear axle. That's going to help him forward just that extra bit of water. At the same time, it can create moments of grip loss if exploited too heavily. So there's a very big consideration getting off the line here between these two. The Lamborghini's engine, not too bad at all. Audi 5.2 litre V10 engine. They've been co-engineering that for decades, and sadly the Huracan is the last example of Lamborghini's consistent relationship with the V10 engine, as the Temerario they tested in Daytona earlier on towards the end of 2025 will be using a twin-turbo V8 power plant, according to Lamborghini. Porsche, it's the tried and true. The flat 6 engine. It's been around with Porsche for decades now, coming up on around 60 years in circulation for that flat 6 engine. Introduced around the time of the 901, way back in the mid-1960s. That was designed by Butzi Porsche, son of Ferry Porsche, who designed the 356, and he was the son of Ferdinand Porsche, who designed the Volkswagen Beetle. All of them were named Ferdinand. Their real names weren't, of course, Butzi and Ferry. They were just given affectionate nicknames, because otherwise you'd have to say, well, it was made by Ferdinand and Ferdinand Jr. and Ferdinand Jr. Regardless, it's 3 generations of Ferdinand Porsches that have gone into the creation of the world's most popular sports car. Make your Volkswagen jokes all you like. There's no denying the presence Porsche commands on a field of cars like this. It is the epitome, by engineering standpoint, of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Heading in towards Crocodiles, you can see that there's been quite a few instances there of swerving for Vermaak. He's trying to generate even the slightest degree of energy into those tyres. He's trying to get even just the slightest bit more heat. He knows this is a grip game for the run in towards turns 2 and 3, up towards Crowthorns, then in the run up to the Juxgay sweep. This is earliest opportunity to overtake that Porsche. Not far from now then, heading in towards Ingwe Curve. 25 cars in all, one from the pit lane. That's the 113 of Kyle Jenkins, attempting another last to decent position. I'm not sure in conditions like these he'll be aiming at last for first. It's more last to survival in wild conditions here in South Africa. Down towards the line then for round 8 of Season 4, the NLRL Sunday League, the first Sunday League race of 2026 here in Kyalami. Without further ado, 90 minutes against the clock. We're green and racing here in South Africa. A great start then by Tyler Vermaak right off the line there. Got the run on Alan Alexander's Porsche. Meanwhile, it's a maelstrom of steel from behind. V8 Thunder from Lexus and Ford, nearly 3 abreast on the second row on the run into turn 2. It's Vermaak into the lead. Alexander down to second. Warner maintains third. Bajor in fourth as we head up towards turn 5. A great start then by Tyler Vermaak. Let's get a look at that just quickly on the replays here. Had a great run that gave him the inside line up towards turn 2. In the background, you can see things starting to fan out there. A couple of drivers running out wide. We saw the Aston Martin there of LeBay run a little bit out wide, backed up on the nose of JM Quito. But Alan Alexander, though, he's lost a lot of wind over Tyler Vermaak, nearly half a second between himself and the Lamborghini. Just a bit of minor desync there as we readjust to the cars. Coming out of the replays. Oh, it's Donkin into the wall. A very laggy collision in the background. We see as well Thomas Romano into the wall. Clipped across the back end there. The number 17 in turmoil just before the S's. Meanwhile, the number 12... number 13 at the back of the field there. The number 12 would be George Todd. Number 13 at the back of the field, I believe, is... it's not Thomas Romano. It's Dan Junior Poulon. The number 5 up in front of him, Stefan Nikolai, in trouble down through the S's. So immediate trouble for quite a few in the opening lap here in that middle sector. Into the final sector, we see here Alan Alexander still pursuing Tyler Vermaak. Meanwhile, out back, we see here from the point of view of Ben Meredith up 2 positions from the race start. So great hustle from Euro Titans today. That's come at the expense of Brooklyn Donkin. We saw him turned around just before the S's. Let's get a look with those 2 Mustangs on the second row here, because things are getting dicey for the control of that podium. Let's get a look on board here. We scroll through the various BMWs. Let's get on board with the Fords, as things have massively shifted away from William Bajor's point of view. He was looking at the chances of a podium just before the end of this lap. Now he's looking at defensive chances for 4th place over Zolt Beefgartner. in the older 5.4 litre Lexus, the RCF going toe-to-toe with its effective replacement. Meanwhile, just hanging on from behind there, we see George Todd and Cas van Velzen 6th and 7th on this grid after the opening 3 minutes. That was a brilliant start, all things considered, by Tyler Vermaat. Got the jump there immediately off of the 3.15. In terms of the reaction game, he was not looking to disappoint on return. He was so precise with that one. Any faster, he would have been looking at potential penalties. Split-second reactions from the number 89. Looking further down the road here, we see a little bit of trouble up in 18th place. Shahan Karim ran a little bit wide out of Sunset. We look from Ivan Sanchez's point of view. He's chasing down Andrew Veldkamp in 19th place. Then looking around here, we've got the battle of 6th place to potentially go on here. Cas van Velzen runs super deep on the brakes in towards Lukov at turn 10. Out through turn 11. About half a second astray there from George Todd. Meanwhile, we see there ducking out to the left-hand side. That was Levi Warner potentially trying to cool down his tyres for the run in towards Mineshaft. Curious strategies indeed. Moreover, it could be a case that he's trying to break just even a slight instance of toe away from William Bajor, knowing how quickly things have teetered in and out of Bajor's favour over the course of what has been just about coming up on 4 minutes of racing. A big slide there out through turn 15 for Van Velzen. He's done well to hold that one down in towards turn 16. Meanwhile, in the current talks there for George Todd, he is starting to gain on Zolt Beefgartner. Now in a straight line competition, it's slim pickings for Ferrari to go up against Lexus and Ford. Even slimmer when you consider up in front of them is Porsche, what is ranked one of the slowest cars on the field in straight line speed statistics alone. Already running up into traffic there. That looks to be Dan Junior Poulon with Malwar Racing. Very early pit stop for the number 13. We saw these sizable amounts of damage when he brought the yellow flags out. Watching from the point of view here of George Todd with Ferrari. Just out behind him there, you see Cas van Velzen get up the inside on Dan Junior Poulon. Little hindrance there to the 420. Out through turn 6, into turn 7 we go. He is actually gaining considerable ground over Zolt Beefgartner, but the case therein remains, how does one get side by side with a Lexus RCF? It is not an easy endeavour. Just ask anyone who tried to go toe-to-toe with Jason Bush back in Season 2. Todd still in pursuits though, and we see that the Lexus has started hemorrhaging time away from the two Fords up in front. Warner and Bajor look to go head-to-head here for the last of those podium positions there on the exit of turn 11. We're still on with George Todd, very much so now in a consideration for a fight at the top 5. Meanwhile, just hanging out from behind him, you see the 420 of Cas van Velzen with Mercedes. You see running out wide there, William Bajor down through Crocodiles. That's going to give a bit of breathing space to the Fats GT Mustang of Levi Warner. Meanwhile, it's Tyler Vermaat leading in towards turn 16. Yellow flags out. It's for the number 19 car, I believe, there in trouble. But that's now got running just after the S's. Out through Ingwe Curve we go. George Todd having broken away from the 420 for the time being. We can see up in front, this is very early doors defense tactics by Levi Warner to cut the toe there away from William Bajor. He's not allowing him any available inch that he won't have to fight for on his way down towards turn 2. In through Crowthorns we go. You see out back as well, Brooklyn Donkin might be getting his elbows out here. And so too does seem to be the case here for Spencer Brown. This is with Ferrari Fats GT number 93 car going toe-to-toe here with Ben Meredith. Bear in mind, Meredith gained 2 positions from the race start. He had a very enthusiastic start for his first ever race in the Sunday League. Now he goes toe-to-toe with another driver who's only recently making his first steps onto the Sunday League grid. That's Spencer Brown with Fats GT. We've seen his work before in the Console Endurance Series, but now we get to see what they can do on the individual scale. In through turn 7 at Clubhouse. Still on board with Brown. Watching here in that ongoing fight for 8th place. Bear in mind, lap traffic up in front. Dan Junior Poulon's Mustang just hanging in the distance as we make our way through the S's. Now, let's not be naive here and not consider the pressing factor. Spencer Brown strategically is caught in a Euro Titan sandwich. Up in front and out behind are 2 Euro Titans cars. Donkin behind him and Meredith up in front. He's locked in. All he can do now is hope to push forward and hope to gain the position, but it is not going to be one easily gained for him. over that Porsche. We've seen its stopping power on display throughout Season 3 in the hands of drivers like Cas van Velzen. An ecstatic performance for Porsche in Monza is one definitely to go down in the history books, how well that 992 can perform when push comes to shove. So in the hands of a driver we've already seen had plenty experience in the wet with Porsche in their time at Silverstone, Ben Meredith should be a very, very compelling case here for Spencer Brown to fight with. Not the first time these two have clashed in the wet. You see Donkin, fastest of the three, and he's in a slipstream train, so there is a very likely chance we are looking at the fight of 9th place for Spencer Brown. He is going to have to start considering his odds. Do I push forward or do I defend? But I cannot do both. In through to turn 2, up through turn 3. Now turn 4. Maneuverability we know Ferrari has by the bucketful, but caught up in the wake of that Porsche, things are going to be getting much better for him. I say that as if he hasn't had one hell of an exit from turn 5. Up towards Sunset at turn 6. He's got to look up the inside here. He has the chance. It's going to be very, very tight between himself and the 317 of Ben Meredith. Meredith holds it around the outside. He'll be later onto the brakes if he hopes to hold on to 8th place. Later on the brakes goes Spencer Brown. This is absolutely epic stuff. Through turn 7 we go, and it looks to be Spencer Brown for the position up to 8th place. Brilliant, brilliant stuff there. Meanwhile, out back, Shahan Karim and I believe the 113 of Kyle Jenkins momentarily brought the yellow flag out through turn 5. Meanwhile, Ben Meredith drops down to 10th, gives the position of 9th up over to Brooklyn Donkin. But what a move there by Spencer Brown. It's he who dares wins. He had a great run out through turn 5, levied that through turn 6, or leveraged that through turn 6 and made his way up the inside. And then was to the outside, held things firm through turn 7 and held on to position. That takes some serious guts there. Bear in mind, it's his second race in the Sunday League and he's making shockwave moves like that. It is quite something. Bear in mind, those two are still very new to this grid, so it's quite refreshing to see driving this precise, this close, in such plentiful variety. Meanwhile, yellow flags are out and it was for Josh Wellbeloved there, just up in front of JM Quito. Thiago Moreira also looked to be in trouble for a moment there, out through turn 15. We see here from JM Quito's point of view, he might have a chance to go and compete here with Wellbeloved. Ben Hart just behind him. Up in front as well, a fight going on for 13th place. Christian Lebay versus Sergio Belda, turned around. That's Brooklyn Donkin facing the wrong way out through turn 2. He's in a very unfortunate spot. He's reversed in towards the crash barriers to keep himself away from prying eyes. Something definitely rather untoward happened there in the fight between Brown and Donkin down towards turn 2 for him to be facing the wrong way on track. We cut back on board up towards the top 5 here. We still see that Levi Warner has put on a stonewall defense of the top 3 so far, but it is starting to create quite a sizable traffic snake behind him because Bajor not only on his tail, but you can see approaching from behind as well. 3 extra cars on top of that fight for third at the moment. The number 54 brings the yellow flags out in through to, looking at it here, turn 6. We want to try and catch on board, and that is Josh Wellbeloved. Looking to catch with the BMW here. We see the number 54 stranded. That forces Jenkins to run out wide on the run in towards turn 7. Has a bit of case where he spun inwards in towards those tyre walls and bounced back onto the track. He's back up and running and back into green flags. And chaotic opening 20 minutes coming up on now. It's been the opening 10 minutes now. We catch on board with William Bajor. And back onto that subject, it's created a sizable traffic snake behind these two in their fight for third, because inviting into the mix Beefgartner, Van Velzen and Todd, inviting in Lexus, Mercedes and Ferrari all to come and have a stab at the podium here. William Bajor front row seats to a chance of being in third place, but he now does have to consider, more so than ever, the chances of having to defend the position he's holding on to at the moment, rather reluctantly so as well. Number 99, Thiago Moreira, in trouble. Down through turn 15 there for the Porsche. See here, Moreira, serious spot above her. Out through turn 15. He's just having to hold his position on track at the moment. You can see coming up from behind him there, the 54. He's actually having to swerve around him. He's created a sort of unintentional chicane on the run in towards the pit lane entry. For Alan Alexander, it's now 1.4 seconds between himself and Tyler Vermack. We know what strategy has been like for the Euro Titans team. They actually had it down to a pretty decent level, and it was only technical issues from inside the pit lane that ever threw them out of competition in Silverstone. That's one of the key takeaways from their performance. They had arguably one of the best performances of any teams to compete in the 6 hours of Silverstone. It was simply a technical case that took them out of being in the conversation for a race win. We see running a little bit out wide there is Alexander. He's able to get the car slowed down just in time for the Crocodiles. Vermaak does gain a little bit of extra distance there. 2.1 seconds now is the gap. Really, the conversation starts to begin on the conversation of the podium, the last of those podium positions, because Levi Warner still has to face off against multiple drivers now looking to fight amongst themselves, so it will be a temporary moment of respite for that number 69 in third place, because things are looking to hot up here in the fight of fourth. On board with Beefgartner. This is in the fight for fourth place. He's got the slipstream over William Bajor. He's just a little too far away to put himself potentially side by side. That's the same story for the car right behind him, Cas van Velzen, in that bright yellow Mercedes. Up through the Juxgay sweep we go. Turns 3 and 4 gives rise to turn 5. Going in around Barbecue Corner. Very awkward section of the track in the dry, even more so in the wet. These drivers are really pushing themselves out there to nail this section every single time. We've seen it cost so much already in fights gone by. Beefgartner still in pursuit here. But Bajor's putting on a decent defense so far. He's not had many slip-ups, if any, so far. They haven't been at least matched in some degree by Beefgartner. I do say that as if there hasn't been a little bit of a slip-up for him there. We see from the onboard view very limited visibility in these wet weather conditions so far. Looking up the inside through turn 10 and 11, more or less a scare tactic here. Beefgartner wouldn't have had the momentum to keep with the Ford had he committed to a move up the inside. So I'm told the 99 is in the pit lane. That's for Thiago Moreira, and so I'm also told just now he is out of this race. So that's one of our first DNFs rolling in, bringing the tally down to actually 22 drivers on the grid. So we are down another driver as well. We'll look into that towards the end of the race today. For Beefgartner, things are starting to crunch now. Less in the conversation of whether or not he can attack for fourth, and much more in the same as we saw earlier for that of William. But, oh, hang on a moment. Levi Warner is what's gone on there. He's into the pit lane, so very early pit lane run for the 69 of Levi Warner. This is now still technically in a fight for fourth. Cas van Velzen had the run out through Ingwe Curve. That's a shocker. We'll have to go and investigate why exactly did Warner put himself in the pit lane so early on in this race, when we still have the considerations here of an hour and 15 minutes of play. Most drivers are going to be gunning for the 3/4 hour mark, dead on the halfway mark of this race. Right now, Beefgartner sliding his way around turn 5. You can see the track is not getting any drier at this time. In fact, conditions have picked up since the race start. It pushes Bajor to third, but Cas van Velzen fancies his chances here for fourth place. So too does George Todd. For Zolt Beefgartner, he is in a very uncomfortable spot. We see here, just briefly, the 69 in and out of the pits. So very early call for the 69. Let's go on board with these two here coming up round out of, looking at it here, turn 7. We're on with Cas van Velzen. He's up the inside on Zolt Beefgartner. Can he hope to hold the position on? Do we see up in front, Bajor sliding. A little bit of grass there for the Mercedes, but Cas van Velzen makes his way up to fourth place. We did see quite a bit of struggle in this lap so far for Zolt Beefgartner. Front end locking up as well. A bit of step out the car, not really linking up where it needs to in the corners. And that's been one such weakness the 420 has been able to exploit so far. That puts Van Velzen in fourth place. Todd is looking at his chances. Bear in mind, let's not rule Beefgartner out of this one. The car may be struggling, but he is not. He will still try and push tooth and nail to get back into fourth place. Out through Cheetah Curve, but he has really got to start sizing his options up here because George Todd doesn't look like he's slowing down at all. Out through Ingwe Curve we go. In a straightaway, that Lexus can definitely gain ground, and especially with distance like that, 0.4 of a second. Chance is absolutely still there. Van Velzen not wasting any energy trying to divert attention away from his Mercedes. He's not trying to cut the line off of the Lexus. He knows he can keep the foot down and reliably stay just at arm's length away from Beefgartner. In towards turn 2 we go. That difference in line, we'll see what it pays off toward. In the case of Van Velzen, he is gaining distance. Moreover, this is something I just wanted to pick up on as well. I'm kind of upset that we missed this one, but Vermac has now dropped down to second place, and Alan Alexander has returned to the race lead by 1.4 seconds. We'll see how quickly, if at all, the Lamborghini can reel the time back in. I think this is definitely coming down to the fact that the track has been picking up in terms of rain. It is getting wetter, and it is looking closer to torrential conditions before the first wave, as it were, of strategic pit stops. No pit window, of course, in this race. A lot of the drivers will be aiming at that halfway mark, and we can see this is definitely where the issues have started to creep in for Vermac. The 54 in trouble. That's yellow flags out now. We'll have to go and catch on board with who caused what, and we'll go and see down the order. It's Josh Wellbeloved in trouble. Nexus GT have really been struggling today here in Kyalami. For Vermac, he is not going to be particularly happy with the way things have gone so far. He's down to second. Not all hope yet is lost for the number 89. We've been told here by one of the Twitch chat viewers, their first time chatting with us as well, so welcome to the chat, saying Vermac lost it on the exit of turn 2 and hit the wall. I don't see the damage on that there, but I do believe you on that, because we see just how slick things are out through turn 2. This is at Crowthorns. And I wouldn't doubt for a second that someone is definitely going to aquaplane off at this section here. We can see actually a little bit of flickering on the nose there for the headlights of Vermac. That could indicate electrical damage from an impact. That's usually a telltale sign. It just didn't look like anything was too major in terms of front-end damage, but it will be slowly but surely affecting him over the course of this race. He's 1.5 seconds at the moment from Alan Alexander. Another stab of oversteer. That Lamborghini, it was a gamble to move towards, his 8th car in 3 seasons. And stability issues have been a major concern. And yes, on paper, it does have the pace that McLaren brings to the table, but at a trade-off of considerably worse off stability. And that's already off of McLaren's basis, one of the most unstable manufacturers by and large. It does take a lot of reining in to keep the McLaren happy. The Lamborghini's a shorter wheelbase than the McLaren. It's more squat, it's more aggressive, and it requires a much steadier hand at the wheel, and that's not the kind of thing one can afford to be in conditions like these. So sadly, where we may have missed that overtake for the lead, I hope that in the next hour and 10 minutes we won't miss it again. If we do, then I'll just be beside myself. It will not be a happy evening for me. So heading out of the first 20 minutes of racing, we follow on board with Zolt Beefgartner, now having dropped in behind George Todd. In the meantime, Alan Alexander now leads here in Kyalami. Vermac second, Bajor third with the fastest lap. Van Veltzen we saw up to 4th place. Todd in 5th, not too far off a chance there of challenging the Mercedes. He's right in his slipstream. As we head on to the next lap, we'll stay on board with these two unless any shorter gaps do appear. Todd in 5th. And Van Veltzen 4th at the moment. This is all in the fight for 4th place. Zolt Beefgartner 6th, Spencer Brown 7th, Ben Meredith in 8th place, Ben Cheeseman in 9th, and Taylor Wolford in 10th. We see running a little bit out wide there was Van Veltzen. That is going to give a little extra space over to George Todd. You can just see how much water is gathering now at turn 2 at Crowthorns. That is getting borderline inhospitable for these GT3s here. We'll see how well they tackle that if the weather is to continue as it is. Right now, it is set to pick up even more in the next 30 minutes, so really a case, God help you, on this grid today. Really should have brought a rain jacket, perhaps a life raft as well, whilst we're on the case. Looking further down the line then, 10th place for Taylor Wolford and 11th for LeBay, so returns to 11th place after a very hectic opening 20 minutes for that 119. He's ahead of Sergio Belda in 12th, Jem Quito 13th, Ben Hart 14th, Levi Warner. We saw that super early pit stop after his vehement defensive 3rd. He's down to 15th for the time being, but he'll be raking in positions when we see that big wave of drivers come in at the halfway. Andrew Velkamp in 16th, Ivan Sanchez 17th, Carl Jenkins in 18th, Thomas Romano 19th, Dan Junior Poulon in 20th, and Josh Wellbeloved in 21st. Been a myriad of issues so far for Wellbeloved and Nexus GT. They can't catch a break here in Kyalami. Meanwhile, we're going to get a look on board up front just in front of that of Beefgartner as we start to see the build-up into a fight here for third. Bajor versus Van Velzen. This could be an exciting one in towards Cheetah. Now, it's been floundering for grip here, that Ford. It's been really, really struggling as the going gets tough. Van Velzen's still in pursuit, and he really doesn't look like he's showing any signs of slowing down. Much like we've seen already from Alan Alexander out of that Porsche, the Mercedes, just much in the same, can really tackle headstrong into stormy and wet conditions like these. Watch this on the way in towards turn 2. Van Velzen is definitely trying his chances to go up the inside. The question is, will there be enough grip to facilitate such a move? In towards turn 2 we go with Cas Van Velzen. He's up the inside and into third. A brilliant move there. He's played that one incredibly close. And the 420 up to the podium. Much to the chagrin then of that 333. Meanwhile, yellow flags are out. It's Levi Warner. Oh my word, it's Levi Warner down through, by looks of it here, the run in towards the Crocodiles, I believe. See if we can go and catch with that Mustang just briefly here. And it was the 69 that brought the yellow flags out. That's since gone back into green flags for the time being. And I think we do need to go and catch back on board almost immediately here with this fight between Bajor, Todd, and Beefgartner. Otherwise, we're about to miss out on some absolute cinema here in Kyalami. Let's get on board with the man in the middle, George Todd. Caught between a rock and a hard place here. Two V8s flanking him from either side. The Ford up front, the Lexus out back. And you can see in the case of Bajor, he is skating in that Mustang down through the S's in towards Lurkop, going around the outside. Looks to be George Todd. I don't think by his own choice there, because it does invite straight up the inside the 599 of Zolt Beefgartner. This is going to get hairy for these three on the run in towards Mineshaft at turn 12. There's so little room to be played with. Looking up the inside. My goodness, watch a move like this as it comes to a head down towards turn 13. George Todd up into fourth. He's licked the stamp and sent it in the number 12. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Can he hold on to it, though, with the Ford so close behind him when we head in towards the opening straight? Bajor's still in pursuit here. The 69 brings out the yellow flags again. It's Levi Warner out through turn 6. It's all come apart for him after that early doors pit stop. Caught out in the same spot we saw earlier for Josh Wellbeloved on the exit of Sunset in towards Clubhouse. Meanwhile, Bajor looks to fancy his chances. So too does Zolt Beefgartner. He goes up the inside on the 333, very nearly clips the number 12. This has been fantastic stuff. In the case of George Todd, he's extending the margins over these two clashing heads at the moment. The Mustang and the Lexus collide through turn 5. Looking over the rear view, you can see Bajor is way out wide. As Beefgartner takes up the mantle of 5th, Bajor will be furious. But George Todd, he's been singing in the rain here for the run up through into the top 5. Now 4th place after that most recent move. Not without a very good fight here. Beefgartner finally having shaken loose the Mustang over his nose. Rather aggressively so. They really did get argy-bargy there through Sector 1. Some touring cars level contact between the pair up through turn 5. And now he's in pursuit of that number 12 Ferrari. Meanwhile, Cas Van Velzen has broken away into the top 3. 2.8 seconds clear of Todd at this time. Drops down a bit as we head into turns 10 and 11. That Mercedes, though, is flying away. In terms of the front row, Alan Alexander, now having gotten loose of the 89, is really starting to take off in that 315 Porsche. He knows precisely what to do in a situation like this. He has planned this one out in his head for so long. Where he failed to capture on that magic in Silverstone by circumstances not of his own decision, he is able to deliver tooth and nail on a brilliant performance. It's side by side and sideways for George Todd. Oh my goodness. Spins all the way out wide, out through turn 15. And I think, was that there? I just looked back up on my screen. Was that contact? Yes, it was. The 317 and the number 12 collide in the bottom right-hand side of our screens there. Oh my goodness, so trying to rejoin the track here. Rejoined right in front of the 317. Very little room for Ben Meredith to have gone there. And he didn't touch the inside curb. That's a very bizarre one there. He just aquaplaned off in these conditions. That has been brutal for George Todd. He's back into the pit lane. Taking a look around the field as to how that's affected things. All of this action has invited the Season 1 champion, Christian Lebay, back up into the top 10. And this is great news for the 119. Bear in mind, in the absence of Melvin Milliston, his championship rival for Season 4, Lebay now has open doors here for a free, healthy dosage of points to start bringing the gap down. as we head over into the penultimate round after today, next Sunday at round 9 at Laguna Seca, a double points round as it's a double sprint race. Oh, facing the wrong way there. That looks to be, yes, that's Ben Cheeseman. The 114 caught in the very same spot that has caught out the 69. Speaking of the 69, yellow flags out again for Levi Warner, this time down at the Crocodiles. It can't keep going like this, can it? It can. Believe me, it can. The weather is dire here in South Africa. Possibly one of the, if not the most wet races we've ever seen in the history of the Sunday League. Race number 40 in the history of the Sunday League. And I've never quite seen anything like this. Van Veltzen now relaxed into the podium for the time being. 5.5 seconds from Tyler Vermaak. So I'm told the 69 is into the pit. An emergency stop for Levi Warner. Could that be the potential early warning signs that he is potentially out of this session? We've seen it's been continuous struggle there for the 69 in these diabolically wet conditions. We hope for his sake that we see him into round 9. We see here for Tyler Vermaak, he has not been spared of the troubles either. That Lamborghini lost out the lead of the race, so I am told by informants, as to an incident pertaining to sliding off track at turn 2 down at Crowthorns. Do look to have potentially some close fighting going on towards the back of the field here. We see 15th and 16th, Kyle Jenkins and Andrew Veldkamp fighting for the last of the top 15 positions. Meanwhile, Ben Meredith is still in the pit lanes after that serious incident there between himself and George Todd out through turn 15. That has not gone well. It is up into 14th there for Andrew Veldkamp, and up to 15th for Kyle Jenkins. Looking at where things stand as we're coming up towards the end of the first 30 minutes of racing here. We are told now the 317 has been released from the pit lane. Let's see if we can go and catch with the Porsche of Ben Meredith. He's back out on track in the 317. You see here the race leader, Alan Alexander, looking to lap George Todd. Now down to 17th on the field amidst his damages earlier on. In towards turn 2 we go. Still in pursuit here is Tyler Vermaak. Bear in mind, Todd is looking to catch up to Ben Meredith. We don't yet know what his attitude's going to be like in terms of giving up positions, considering he was collided with by a Euro Titans Porsche. I don't think he's going to be particularly friendly with this one. Heading in towards turn 6. Still following in his wake. Tremendous spray over the nose of the 315, but the number 12 there runs out wide through Sunset and gives the position up. Has forced now a bit of a wedge between himself and Tyler Vermaak. 2.5 seconds at this time. The Lamborghini just off in the distance there. We just quickly catch back on with this fight now. Jenkins up and ahead of Veldkamp. Having made the move stick out through turns 10 and 11. Warner from the pit lane there. It's a bit of a sad sight, really. He had such a solid qualifier, and it's all come apart in the wet conditions. You can see it from where we're standing. It is so thick, the rainfall. You can almost hardly see the Ford from the paddock. It's diabolical, biblical amounts of rain. Looking around then for the nearest fights on track, we see George Todd now having given position over to Tyler Vermaak out through turn 15. Both of them having a little bit of a wobble round through Cheetah Curb. That's caught many drivers by the tail throughout today's race. Past the first 30 minutes, let's get a look at the overall standings. Alan Alexander leads here in Kyalami. Vermaak second, Van Veltzen up to third, Beefgartner fourth with Bajor fifth, Wolford into sixth place with Belder in seventh, Cheeseman in eighth, Keto ninth, LeBay, having taken his pit stop earlier than the midway, is in 10th place and stands very solid chances here of gaining more positions before the checkered flag today. Spencer Brown in 11th place, same story for the 93. He could definitely worm his way back to the top 10 and is, as a matter of fact, really not too far off a shout of 10th right now, with LePay just up in front of him there in the V12 Vantage. In 12th place, Ben Hart, Ivan Sanchez 13th, Kyle Jenkins, we saw him turned around, he's now down to 14th place. Andrew Velkamp is in 15th. Bear in mind, in their little fight, Jenkins most recently got the move up to 14th, so he was actually momentarily down in 15th. Meredith down to 16th, Todd down to 17th, Thomas Romano up to 18th, Dan Junior Poulon down to 19th, and Levi Warner still in the pit lane. No current word as to if he'll re-enter the track. It could, after a certain amount of time. It's been 4 laps now, realistically be counted as a DNF. A potential emerging fight then, 4 seconds faster on the last lap, but we must consider that I believe the last lap there for both of them were their pit lane runs. LeBay 1.8 seconds from Spencer Brown. That could be an interesting one. That's for the last of the top 10 positions as of right now. See here, out through turn 6, the 114 very nearly got on toward the grass. That's Ben Cheeseman. Van Veltzen 5.6 seconds up the road from Beefgartner. Vermack about 2-3 odd seconds there away from Alexander. We do have yellow flags out again. It's the number 19, and it's Thomas Romano with Honda. Down at turn 11 there. He's spiraled inward out of turn 10 through turn 11 into the crash barriers, trying to find some room to exit here, and you can see where that issue is starting to creep up on him, because with cars still rushing in through that corner, this is his one and only opportunity, but he's taken a little too long, so the 119 will be coming up in a moment's time. Surely he doesn't think to reverse on the track now with the Aston Martin approaching. Well, he's actually played that one rather clever, to be fair. He's gotten himself turned around on the grass there, rejoins. See, that's how it's done. Great safety lesson there from Team Raceline. 19th place in the moment for Romano. Minimal damages as well to his Honda, so still looking okay structurally. 3.1 seconds between Alexander and Vermack. Chances starting to swing away from the Lamborghini with the superior performance in the wet from that Porsche so far. This is possibly the worst combination Vermack could have gone up against in terms of driver, car, and conditions. We've already seen quite well on display how proficient in the wet Alan Alexander and the 315 Porsche 911 are. See here for Zolt Beefgartner, still 5.2 seconds away from Cas Van Veltzen. Little chance at this time those two will fight again before the halfway mark. They've got about 10 minutes before that major wave of drivers into the pits at the session halfway. 45 minutes left to go, 55 at the moment. Nearest fights, we're seeing the 40 and the 91 here, Ivan Sanchez and Ben Hart. There is also that consideration as well, Spencer Brown versus Christian LeBay, but since we catch back on board with them, that gap actually opened up away from what was about 1.4, 1.5 seconds, now to 2.4 seconds. So LeBay's opening the taps on up. He's opening the taps on that V12 Vantage. If we can really get the words out today, that'd be lovely. Working with an engine 2 times the amount of cylinders as the one behind him here, Spencer Brown in the V6 Ferrari. Very curious to see how that strategy plays off for Christian LeBay. He's 10th at the moment. Was inside of that top 10 for a little while. Went into the pits earlier than expected. That could actually prove to be somewhat of an ace in the hole here, because he's got better tyres now for the push stint, where a lot of these drivers will be looking to wind down in the next 10 minutes. They'll be coming into the pits to get a brand new set of tyres. Open-ended strategy, of course. We say the minimum refueling time is 3.2 seconds. That's realistically how long it takes to get the car up on the jacks and then off. So it is technically, as far as anyone is concerned, you can do a stop and drop. Not that you should, because I don't think the cars actually have enough fuel for an hour and a half at the most. In the last lap there, we saw an improvement by about 1/10 of a second for Christian LeBay over Spencer Brown. So he has got the pace here in the Aston Martin. That's quite a surprise as well when you consider that the V12 Vantage, like most legacy machines, does tend to struggle a tad in the wet conditions. And he's sort of been the sole arbiter of the V12's performance throughout the last 4 seasons. In his last times here with Aston Martin before his big move over to Jaguar, it is still remarkable to see what he can do with that V12 advantage. It's almost a pity then that there have been very little confirmations from anyone on the grid that Aston Martin will find their way onto the grid. Tom Mini 0728 saying, bro, you're using the whole English dictionary to describe this rain. Well, we like to get a bit poetic with it all, don't we? See here into the pits, Kyle Jenkins and Thomas Romano. 113 and the number 19. Honda just on its way out there. You see it spent minimal time in the pits trying to repair the damages it suffered down at turn 10 and 11. It was negligible on the Honda. Kyle Jenkins, he stopped and now dropped and now on his way out. He triple three here side by side with Romano. Now lapping past the number 19. As for the gap between Alexander and Vermaak, now being slightly hindered by an influx of traffic over the nose of that 315. It's generating some spray. It's messing with his visibility a little bit here for that of Alan Alexander. And that has netted him about 5 seconds in the stead of Tyler Vermaak. He is slowly gaining here to the 315, but will it be enough to intercept him by the time we get in towards that sort of imaginary pit window a lot of these drivers are going to be aiming for today? We've seen it time and time again here on these open strategy races. A lot of drivers try to do as few runs to the pits as possible, even in conditions as biblical as these. You can see in a section where drivers would normally be able to hold their nerve, slam the throttle open, and sort of run all the way through turn 12. They are having to hesitate here. They're having to lift. They're having to play it safe. And this is something that it's a bit of a mind game here. A lot of these drivers are going to have to wrestle with their own instinct heading in through that third sector. It's where a lot of drivers have gone wrong already, was in through sector 1 and sector 2 on the run in through turn 6 at sunset. A lot of drivers are used to, on a dry conditions here in Kyalami, just holding the throttle and letting the car roll its way on through. You can't do that in the wet because you will run out wide where there is a huge pocket of standing water, and that's claimed already so many drivers today. Now 1.8 seconds, the gap between Alexander and Vermaak. This could be one to follow. We'll take a look around the field just to see what else is going on inside of the top 5. Gap between Van Velzen and Beefgartner has started to slow down here. About 2.7 seconds between the Lexus and the Mercedes. 1.6 seconds for Vermaak. He is starting to intercept. That's because up in front of him there, you can see Meredith just getting the leg up over Veldkamp. Up in the 12th place goes the Porsche, number 317. I suppose, as you can't see there, from the tremendous amounts of spray generated by those two in their fight for 12th place, that's not going to be doing many favours for Alan Alexander. In fact, let's see if we can go and catch on board with Alan Alexander to see what we can't see, which is namely most of the track. In towards turn 10 and 11, you can see that's the amount of spray generated by the car up in front. That's the 317 if you can make out even the vague silhouette of a Porsche amidst a huge wad of water being sprayed up towards the nose of the 315. That's all playing very nicely into the hands of Vermaak. You can only really see the two glints that are the headlights poking their way through the mist there and reflecting off of the track. See here for the race lead. Will there be the considerations of a pit lane run? And so it seems there for Alan Alexander. You saw a slight moment of hesitation on his run into the pits. That does give Vermaak the lead of this race for now, but we'll see under strategy whether or not that's his to hold. Into the pit lane goes Alan Alexander after a great opening stint here in Kyalami. Andrew Veldkamp also into the pits as well. So too is the story for Cas Van Velzen, if I'm told correctly here. We go and catch on board with the Mercedes into the pits. There goes the 420 of Van Velzen. Great opening stint from him as well. We saw his battle up through the order with Bajor, with Beefgartner to take on third place. It was really quite something. Bajor now up to the podium for the time being. Same story for Beefgartner. They will be fearful of the sight of a bright yellow Mercedes in their rearview mirror not long from now. We see here for Taylor Wolford staying out long with VEC Esports' number 6 Porsche. He stays out and inherits 4th place. Ben Meredith next in his iron sight. Sergio Belda 9 seconds up the road for 11th place. Bear in mind, there's also that chance for him to automatically gain that 11th place without having to try too hard for it. Ivan Sanchez in 10th, yet to have pitted. There could be 3 positions up for grabs here for the 317. Now, considering where things did get rather frayed earlier on, I think we still have it on the replay here. We'll have a little look to see if that is the case. That was the incident for George Todd back on lap 13. He spun out wide here, and this is where it starts to involve the 317 because he's just minding his own business on the run in through turn 15. Todd tries to rejoins over the nose. He's trying to steer in, then steers away. He's not got enough time to react, collides with the number 12. Then they had a few more collisions after that. He did put quite the hamper on the 317. So far, so good for him. He's back up into the top 15. He will likely be able to walk away from today if he plays his cards right here with a potential top 10 finish. Considering what he's had to go up against, that's not too bad at all. Of course, these drivers are ever the ambitious type. They'll always be thinking of what they could have done differently, but by simple nature of what motorsports is, you can't really reflect too much on the past. You've got to look forward to that next round. See there, off the track, giving the space over to Alan Alexander. That was Kyle Jenkins in the 113 5-star esports McLaren. You can see notable front end damage. Some kind of incident earlier on for the 113. We see here for Dan Junior Poulin being intercepted by Cas Van Veltzen. Admittedly, these are on 2 different lengths of the track. Poulin down in 16th, Van Veltzen in 6th. Already navigating his way through traffic. JM Quito just behind him there, 1.5 seconds away. Levi Warner still in the pits. Getting towards that session halfway. Still a few loose ends left untied. We've got word there from Tom Minnie. Forgot to change tyre. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that, yes, as we see there coming out of the pit, so rather compellingly, that is probably who Tom Minnie is. That's Thomas Romano in the number 19 Honda. It's a rare sight indeed, that Honda NSX. A pity they didn't have more time in the limelight. A very bizarre project from Honda in the late 2010s. I think ultimately the newer gen NSX fell victim to sort of badge engineering. It's in the same reason why BMW could never really sell too many models of the M8. It's for the simple reason that there aren't many people out there willing to splash upwards of £90,000 to £100,000 when the car debuted on a Honda. That just doesn't really exist. You could buy an original NSX for a fraction of the cost in decent condition. And it's a pity because it is a good project. It reminded me a lot of the older R35 Nissan GTR. It's very techy, it's very enthusiast driven, but the problem is, unlike the GTR, it just didn't retail at an affordable price. So the kind of upper end of the economic ladder car enthusiasts who would be the sort of people to buy the GTR or the Porsche 911 GT3 just didn't find it that alluring. It wasn't exclusive enough to be a GT3 RS, and it wasn't pricey, it wasn't cheap enough basically to be what the GTR was. That does not make it a bad car. It was a car plagued by circumstance. In any other decade, this would be a fantastic vehicle. It's a pity that they pulled the plug on it too early to see it through to proper success. You see here for Tyler Vermack, back up to 3rd place. Taylor Walford drops down to 4th. 2.5 seconds now behind Vermack. Troubles for the number 6. Also in the pits at the moment, JM Quito just coming in the number 26 Holciano's Ferrari. Great hustle in the opening stint there. Gives LeBay the rise up towards 7th place. Now he stands the potential chances to move up to 6th with Taylor Walford coming into the pits not long from now. Now the real questions still remain. What are the sort of times going to look like here when Beef Gardner and Bajor come in to the pits? I'm sure that LeBay has planned this one out to where if he plays his cards very close here, he plays things very carefully, he could actually be within a stab of a top 5, and that would really be quite something considering he started outside of the top 10 in the V12 Vantage, a car we know is outside of appearances from his own 119 V12 Vantage, we've seen as a car that's somewhat antiquated from the modern ACC scape. He's been one of the sole proprietors of performances from Aston Martin's V12 Vantage in the community space here on console. I'd be remiss to tell you another driver that's famous for driving this on the console ACC space. I should say that. I imagine the actual drivers of the V12 Vantage would be maybe such names to come up, but LeBay's definitely the sort of sole proprietor for the V12's lasting legacy in console ACC in the community space so far. Especially in this series. It's the only car we've ever seen the 119 adorn. And it's going to be a very bizarre case heading in to 2026 further on from Season 4, heading into Season 5, where he'll be driving with Jaguar. Again, it's an odd pick, and we've seen in his hands over on the Competizione Performance League Jaguar GT3 Revival Series that it is a capable machine in terms of pace, but something would feel a little bit empty without the V12, in my opinion. Maybe that's just the Aston Martin fan of me speaking. You see there from behind him, Spencer Brown has not actually lost sight at all of the objective at hand, and he is still very much in range of LeBay. So LeBay can't take a nice leisurely drive in the rain here for the next 42 minutes, and hope this strategy plays out. He is going to be pushed all the way to the checkered flag by looks of it here by Spencer Brown, who's found his footing now in torrential conditions here in Kyalami. And so I'm told, looking at the weather radar, I don't really quite believe this, but somehow the rain is set to pick up even more in the next 30 minutes. See here, Taylor Wolford catching back up to Tyler Vermack. There is that consideration as well. Wolford will need to pit. It is rather impressive indeed to see how close the Porsche is staying on considerably older tyres than the Lamborghini in front. See here from the driver's eye view of Tyler Vermack on with the helmet cam and the number 89, just how little sort of available space there is to play with. Looking at how slick the track is, it's very hard from their point of view to figure out where that dry line really exists. The 113 now emergency stop in the pit lane. That was for, I think that's Kyle Jenkins, yes, with 5-Star Esports. That's the second emergency stop of today after the 69 of Levi Warner. That could be another DNF then, as the death toll here in Kyalami continues to rise. We're down at what is currently, when you consider there is 19 cars in attendance, 2 from the pit lane at the moment, that brings us down to 17 cars. We started with 25. We've got word there from Jenkins as to why that's been the case. It put them, or his pit crew, put him on, oh, no, don't believe this, dry tyres. I mean, it's giving off, you know, the Scuderia Ferrari F1 team, and it's prime for those strategy calls. Put them on the dries in the wet. I mean, what are we doing here? That's shoddy work for the 113's pit crew. I don't know what the game's done for him there, but they've sold him downstream. They have really sold him downstream for that one. William Peugeot on his way out of the pits then, 7th place and behind Spencer Brown, and that pushes LeBay up to the top 5. Also having a look onto the charts here, it leaves Zolt Beefgartner off by his lonesome in the lead of this race. Vermack second, Alexander third. So Vermack, right now, stands upon the chances to lead this race outright. Alexander in third place now. Bear in mind, he pitted before Vermack. There was that degree of hesitation for a moment, and it's not paid off for him because he has now found himself with a considerable wedge of time between himself and Tyler Vermack. About 5.5 seconds at the last interval, with Beefgartner into the pit lane here. 40 minutes left to go in Kyalami. Vermack looks to be moving back up to the lead of this race. For Van Veltzen, he'll be moving up to the podium. For LeBay, he'll be moving to 4th place. Spencer Brown will move to the top 5. Bear in mind, William Peugeot not too far away here. He has got quite some space to make up for in 39.5 minutes. Beefgartner in the pits. Vermack leads in Kyalami. You see, we are starting to see very close range fight about to happen here. Brown v LeBay. The 93 versus the 119. We just see they're running out wide, super wide as a matter of fact. There's Spencer Brown in the number 93 Ferrari for Fats GT. That's given a bit of breathing space back over to Christian LeBay. The gap at about 2 seconds as they head round turn 5. We also see very close fighting here. JM Keto versus George Todd. Bear in mind, he was sent down range quite some time ago. I think we still have that on the replays. We'll take a look. It was down through this section of the track as well. Way back when, earlier on in today's race, as we see here on the replays, this is what happened to George Todd back on lap 13. This is what set him down the path to where he is at the moment. This huge spin around, and then complemented by the fact that as he tried to re-emerge to the track, did so in front of the approaching 317, collided there on his way back onto the track. For that reason, that's why he's down fighting with Keto for the last of those top 10 positions. Peugeot in the pit lane in the 333. Just making his way out. And the 333 is a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding. So that's gone from bad to worse here for Peugeot. He's missed out on strategy. Moreover, we see here in the fight for 10th place, Keto v Todd. Todd around the outside. Let's see if we can get on board with George Todd here with Ferrari. Looking to go the long way around town here at turn 6. We know how risky this spot has been so far in what has been the worst conditions on record here in Kyalami. Going around the outside, though, second time's the charm for George Todd up to 10th place. We also do have yellow flags out in front. It's for Sergio Belder with Holkianos. A bit of disaster here, as they both could be relegated towards the back of the top 10 here. As you see, off to one side. Actually, it's so hard to see it. We're going to try and get a look at that on the replays. It was in the almost the splash there on your right-hand side. I think spun around. Yeah, you can actually see it there. That was very, very hard to see from our point of view, but he actually did half spin into the wall. Belder spun around. That's 2 positions for the price of 1 for George Todd, though. He will not be arguing from where he stands. The 114 brings out the yellow flags again, and that is for Ben Cheeseman of 5-Star Esports. Could that be even more turmoil for 5-Star? We saw that issue for tyre strategy for the 113 creep up on Kyle Jenkins. Cheeseman with damage there just before the S's. Van Veltzen looking to get up the inside on Ivan Sanchez. He's trying to break away here from what could be a narrowing gap between himself and Zolt Beefgartner. You can see the Lexus just hanging around in the background here. Meanwhile, in the gap for Vermaak and Alexander sitting in at around 5 seconds, so no imminent threat of a battle. We will be keeping close attention on the front row. We've got word again from Romano that his pit crew didn't give him any fuel on his last run through the pit, so that's not gone well here. First it was tyres, then it was fuel. Did the pit crew even know he was coming in at this point? They've given him absolutely nothing. You can see just looming behind the BMW of Sanchez there is Zolt Beefgartner in 4th place with Lexus. Not far off by a long shot there. 2.6 seconds between himself and Van Veltzen for a potential podium fight. For Vermaak, he's played the strategy out very, very nicely here. He's back up in command of things. The 333 has cleared their stop and go. This could have dire consequences as well when you consider the Rookies Championship for the likes of William Peugeot. Now, whilst we stay on board here with the race leader, Tyler Vermaak, let's just quickly take a look back into it here. This is for the Rookies Championship. And you see that Peugeot was leading ahead of Angel and Beefgartner. And with Peugeot so far down the order and Beefgartner so far up the order, bear in mind there are more rookies up towards the front than just Beefgartner alone. We'll be getting into the discussion of who's taking the Rookie Division win, not far from where we are at this very moment. But Beefgartner will gain a considerable wad of time, or not wad of time, wad of points here over Sam Angel. That will put him up to potentially the second available spot to attack Peugeot, if not put him much, much closer here. You can see the gap between the pairs in at around 86 points from first to third. So he can easily make up, coming up at about half of those in a very, very good stead here in the rookies wing. In terms of the gap between Alexander and Vermaak, we're waiting to see what the intervals are saying as they had a little bit of a moment there processing. In the last lap, Alexander was considerably faster than Vermaak, looking in around the range there, 152.2 to a 151. I think that was 151.4. About 0.7 of a second in one lap. 3.8 seconds currently the gap between the leading pair. As for Zolt Beefgartner and Cas van Veltzen, Beefgartner slower on the last lap, and that's why the gap has now climbed up to 3.4 seconds. Looking for where nearby fights are concerned. We did see some fighting earlier on from George Todd, but I don't think anyone's close enough to be in the sight of the Ferrari so far. We are seeing here fighting for 13th place. Peugeot versus Poulain. EEC versus Malois Racing. A civil war here for the Ford Motor Company. Oh my word there, just quickly got back onto the microphone. That was the number 19, turned around at turn 2. Very nearly stepped into the way of these two Mustangs. That was Romano with Honda and Team Raceline. To stay on board here with Peugeot. Looking to try his way up the inside. Good defense so far by Dan Junior Poulain. Is he going to run himself out of road, though, under the brakes? Very easy to do so up through Clubhouse. Doesn't find it, though. You can see much better exit for Peugeot, but because of that area denial, there's very little available space on either side of the dry line for him to play with, down through the S's especially, where we've seen plenty of drivers already find their way into trouble. Most recently was Sergio Belda. In towards turn 10 at Lurkop, he could try his way up the inside, and try he does. Up the inside there on Dan Junior Poulain. Goes William Peugeot and holds position up to 13th. There is still the consideration of this fight here. Brown v LeBay now picking back up into its next wave. After the previous time we saw these two, Spencer Brown went out wide in through turn 2 at Crowthorns. And that put an early stop on their chances to fight here for the top 5. In the last lap, half a second faster, so considerable effort here from the 93 to catch up to the 119. If he can even see the 119 in front of him down through to turn 2, a bit out wide for the pair of them as they head around Crowthorns into the Juxgay sweep. We're on board with the Ferrari number 93 of Fats GT's Spencer Brown, pursuing Christian LeBay for 5th place. Right up to the back of the 119 on the exit of turn 5. Can see, though, in the straightaways, you aren't matching straight line speed off of the V12 Varnish, so he's going to have to attack for the corners. We know how good the Ferrari is right now for cornering capacity. He's treading on thin ice here. Both of them are in cars that we know don't have the greatest stability when push comes to shove. It does take a serious set of hands at the wheel to keep these cars in line, and I think we're in luck in the case of LeBay v Brown. Out through the S as we go up towards Lurkop. In terms of stopping power, it's slightly onto Ferrari's side here. The older brakes on that Aston Martin do give it a slightly longer stopping distance. Down through to the Crocodiles we go. You can see this, that faint green blur in the distance. That's Ivan Sanchez, the number 91 BMW, down in 12th place. That's traffic potentially to stand in the way of this fight for 5th on track. We head into the last 30 minutes of racing coming up here in towards turn 16. You can see from where we're watching in the 93's point of view, very, very hard to see anything at all. Let's get a look from the driver's point of view. The helmet cam for Spencer Brown as he gets up and around Ivan Sanchez. You can barely see that Aston Martin. Down towards turn 2. LeBay holding centre mass of the road here. Not playing too strongly onto the racing line. He's just trying to cut off any kind of space for the 93. Force him to run himself out of road. That is seeming to work here. That's one of the major problems with Ferrari. They're a bit anemic when it comes to acceleration. So if you're able to snip momentum off of their nose, as we saw over on HCCL, you can play very nicely against the 296 by just countering them that way. It is the hard counter of the 296 is cutting off their momentum. So in the case of where we saw in HCCL yesterday in Barcelona, if you cut the momentum off through the RACC chicane, they are powerless down the opening straight. That's precisely what LeBay's done. He's managed to just hold up Brown a little bit through Sector 1. As we enter Sector 2 and things start to level out a bit, the Aston Martin can just take off. The Ferrari has got to do a little bit more effort there to get back up and running. Very, very clever stuff indeed. See here for Cas van Veldt, and the gap between himself and Zolt Beefgun are about 2.7 seconds, so things are slowly teetering into what could be a fight for third place in the next 28 minutes. We've seen already these two know a thing or two about what they're meant to be getting up to on track. These are two very solid drivers in this league. Van Veldt, of course, a veteran now of the Sunday League. Has put on quite the set of performances in the last couple of seasons. Beefgartner on his debut season in the Rookies division. As for the 89, looking here, the gap between himself and Alan Alexander has snapped down massively. So we're going to try and catch on board with the attacking car for this point of view. On board with Alan Alexander for the fight of the race lead. I told you we wouldn't miss this again. I was hoping to be right. Alan Alexander on board with then, fighting with Tyler Vermaak. He's caught back up to the 89 Lamborghini. Both of them, very little grip to play with, very little visibility to play with on the exit of the S's. In towards Lurkop at turn 10 and 11. Vermaak holds the inside. Alexander sticking to the racing line. Moving to one side to let them through there. That's Sergio Belda in the 74. In towards turn 12 we go. You can hardly see the Lamborghini. We were saying it before when we were watching with Spencer Brown. It was super hard to see LeBay's Aston Martin. It's even harder in this case to see the Lamborghini of Tyler Vermaak. It's generating even more spray, so it seems. In towards turn 15, both of them having a bit of issues for grip there. Playing a lot more hesitantly, and I think this is less and less becoming their problem. It's more and more becoming a global problem for all drivers on this track here. Very little grip to play with. The rain doesn't show any signs of going away so far. With 26.5 minutes left to go, it is definitely here to stay. In the last lap, he was only 7/100ths faster than the leading Lamborghini. Alexander still in pursuit. Out through turn 5 we go. You see, in spite of all of this, he's actually looking at being within a chance of going faster than his current personal best. Oh, big hit there over the curbs. That one's just caught him off guard. Let's get a look at that one on the replays. So you see here, this is what happened for Alan Alexander when he was pursuing Tyler Vermaak for the race leads. We see them currently down through turn 10 and 11. It was a hit over that curb on the inside. And looking at that replay just once more before we catch back on with these two, they make their way down towards turn 12. I think it was a case where, because of the amount of spray, you actually couldn't see that corner coming up. Yeah, it was a case he actually just couldn't see the start of the curb, went in a little too early and got clipped. He's been quite lucky to come out of that with minimal issues. He's dropped a bit of time away from Vermaak, but we've already seen if pace is anything to go by, he's got the chances to get up towards that fight for the lead once again. He is still very much within a chance to get side by side with Vermaak, but this time around, Vermaak will not be holding back, and he will not be looking to make the same mistakes that cost him the lead early on. A lead that he obtained off of a lightning start when the lights went green and we went racing. We've seen the defending point of view. Let's get the seen the attacking point of view. Let's get the defending point of view here on with the Lamborghini of Tyler Vermaak. Out through to turn 6 we go. Traffic coming up in front. That's JM Keto, and it's super close there between himself and the Lamborghini of Vermac. That could have ended in tears. Out through to turn 7 we go. Half a second scraping around it there for the 315 Vermac. Forced to defend for the race lead, and he will defend with his life for this one. He's looking to make a very solid impression upon return to the Sunday League. So far, so good for the 89. Bear in mind, if we're to keep history of this season alone in mind, the last time Vermac took the checkered flag first among the fray was in the season premiere for Season 4 back in Indianapolis at round 1 of the championship in his time with the Ford Motor Company. Now on his return to the Sunday League on a drive we're told is the prelude for his mainstay run of Season 5's championship. He is making a very solid run of things, but in through Crocodiles, he runs out wide, so he's at the mercy here of the 315, who takes up into the race lead before turn 15. Can there be the chance of a fight back from Tyler Vermac in towards turn 16? We go. He'll have to hook things, trying up the inside. Squeezing there, the 315, but he can't find head or tail of it. He drops down to second place, but moreover, in the slipstream. The pressure by Alexander perhaps starting to get to the 89 here. Just one slip in these conditions proves to be detrimental for the 89. You can see hardly any visibility at all. Now that he's out in the clean air, you can see just how difficult this is. Alan Alexander once again leads here in Kyalami. Vermac right on his tail into turn 5. You can see how much water is now starting to gather on either end of the track surface. If they deviate from that dry line, it can be fatal. Out through to turn 6. I think we might be able to see that in practice here. Very wide out through turn 6 for Tyler Vermac. He catches the rear end of the car, but he is bleeding time away from Alan Alexander, who now leads here in Kyalami once again. On board then with Alexander. Back into the top step. This could be huge here when we consider once again bringing back up those previous race wins. We stand upon the chances to see a rookie driver win outright in the Sunday League. This could make history. And when we bring up the history of race winners in the Sunday League for the last 4 seasons, we will find that this is going to be the first race win for a British driver since, and I'm trying to check my notes on this one, it'll be since Ian Skeen, Season 2 Bathurst with Aston Martin. So that is really quite something. 21 minutes could decide history here on race number 40 of the NLRL Sunday League here in Season 4 Round 8 of the Kyalami Enduro. And what has been fantastic racing throughout, we've just seen a pivotal change in the command of the race lead, and it now goes back to the man who started from pole position, Alan Alexander, leading with Porsche. We're going to take a look through our records as well, because we're going to see if Porsche has any accolades so far. And so I'm told no is the sufficient answer right now. Over the course of the last 4 seasons, it has been a case where 5 manufacturers have won races in the Sunday League. The first ever McLaren to win a race was Wesley Kuiper's number 111 720S at the opening round, Season 1, Round 1 in Misano. The first ever BMW to win a race was Melvin Milliston, Season 1, Round 4 at the Red Bull Ring in his number 68 M4. The first Aston Martin to win a race was the number 99 V8 Vantage of Hayden Puttock in the finale round, Season 1, Round 8 of the Nürburgring way back in the opening season. The first Lexus to win a race in the Sunday League was in Season 2, Round 4 by Jason Bush in the number 33 RCF. And the first ever Ford to win a race was the number 57 of Martijn van Manen in Indianapolis, Season 1, Round 5. What I am saying here is 19 minutes and 45 seconds from now, Porsche could join the winners roster in the hands of Alan Alexander, the first British race winner since Ian Skeen 2 seasons ago. That was Season 2, Round 3. So very, very early on back in Season 2. A season that went on to be dominated in the second half by Jason Bush. We'll catch on with these two in due course, taking a look at the gap just before we cut away. 2.5 seconds between the leading pair. Now, there is one such battle I want to get back on board with, and sadly, I think it's because we've now just missed its turning point. That was Brown v. LeBay. We were so glued to the screens there, adamant to see how things panned out in the opening, well, not the opening fight, sorry, the leading fight, as it were. We missed out on that top 5 fight. We also saw a moment of upset there over Cheetah at turn 15 for Christian LeBay's Aston Martin. He's in 6th place, drops down a peg there from the Ferrari up over his nose now. Spencer Brown into the top 5. So looking into the last 20 minutes of racing here to see where our nearest fights are coming from, you'd be looking over towards Van Velzen versus Beefgartner. This could be a serious one to watch here for the last of those podium positions. These two have been thrashing each other throughout today's race. It's going to be exciting to see what they do here in their final run of it in 18 minutes time. Alan Alexander leads in Kyalami once again after a heated battle between himself and Tyler Vermack. Vermack down to 2nd. Cas Van Velzen up to 3rd from the race start. He has had a real solid drive today. Up to 3rd for Mercedes AMG. Beefgartner giving him pressure in 4th place with Lexus. Spencer Brown in 5th, LeBay 6th, Meredith in 7th. A really, really solid opening race here for Ben Meredith. A series of highs and lows in the span of just under 90 minutes right now. And he finds himself still in the chances of a top 10. 7th at the moment. If anything goes on up in front in that fight for 5th place might be on the table, but it's a big, big might at this time. Taylor Wolford, great results so far for VEC Esports in 8th place in the number 6. George Todd 9th has come back from really uncertain odds so far with 17 minutes to the line. It could still be a really solid turnaround to consider that as well. George Todd is about to get into a scrap here for 8th place with Taylor Wolford, no less. So 2 drivers we've just spoken about there. What a bit of upset in towards the S's for the number 12. He's forced onto the gravel after a little step out on the run in towards turn 8. Out through turn 9, he spat back out some distance from Wolford. Then looking further down from the top 10 backwards, we have Sergio Belda, 10th place, JM Quito in 11th, and Ivan Sanchez in 12th. From where they stand, it'll be solid points coming in for the Holkianos team. One of them inside the top 10, but a lot of them very, very tightly spread there, just around the top 10 mark. 13th place for William Bajor and Dan Junior Poulan in 14th. Andrew Velkamp, 15th. Ben Cheeseman is into the pit lane in 16th. And that could forfeit position over to Kyle Jenkins. He might move up to 16th here. Cheeseman could be down to 17th. Romano 18th. Warner 19th. A whole sleuth of DNFs today. A lot to break down, no pun intended, towards the end of this race. Van Velzen, 0.7 of a second away from Beefgartner in towards turn 12. We have a statement from another driver who failed to pick up on it before, but now that we think about it, it is rather bizarre that the grid is without its early birds, the 413 of James Mason, but he's fortunately been able to chime into the chat and give us some reasoning as to why his BMW was not found in the paddock. It was for the simple reason that there's been quite a few issues with his game as of recently, including missed inputs and very delayed steering, and he didn't want to run the risk of hampering his own championship endeavours, would rather just take the drop round and run with it. And as it turns out, at least in his opinion, from what he's telling us in the Twitch chat, he's quite glad that he did miss this one because these conditions definitely on the wetter side. So far, still watching with Van Velzen v Beefgartner. We'll get a quick look into some of the other fights on track. As we just see running out wide there through turn 6. Actually, we will stay on board with just these two for the time being. We were going to catch on with Bajor v Sanchez, but we see Bajor out in front, looking to extend the margins there. Let's stay on board, though, on the magnetic fight we're seeing here for the podium. Van Velzen and Beefgartner now running into traffic up in front. Veldkamp and Cheeseman in their own fight right now for 15th. In towards Luakop we go. Up the inside. Beefgarner still incredibly close there over the rear view of the AMG of Cas van Veltzen. In towards turn 12 we go. Really, when discussing Van Veltzen's presence on the Sunday League grid, we speak a lot about his brief time with Porsche, but I would really say forged in fire over the course of this season and a little bit of last. His Mercedes era has been undeniable on this grid. He has had one of the most consistent bouts of performance of any driver on the Sunday League grid this season, and I think it owes great in part to having a car that fits his driving style like a glove here, and that Mercedes has really gone and stood the test of time here. This is the 2020 model, so it's 6 years out of date compared to the rest of the field now. We're not dealing with any further Evo packages. This is, as far as anyone's concerned, the Evo package that was introduced after the original model in 2015. Something that always bothered me with ACC, this is just a little bit of a separate tangent whilst we've got the time. If you've ever loaded on to ACC, have you ever noticed in the blurry image in the background of the game, there is actually a Mercedes SLS GT3 on the track next to the AMG GT. We never get to play with that. That really upsets me. It really, really does. I maybe would have played the game more if they had that. Back onto this fight, though. A bit of a slip up through turn 6 has definitely afforded more time back over to the 599. Meanwhile, in the fight up front, Thomas Romano finds himself in between the leading pair of Alexander and Vermaak, putting a further wedge up past 6 seconds as it stands right now for Vermaak's gap to Alexander. That could get even more so when he catches up to the Honda. We see Van Veltzen run all the way out wide. This is going to be great news for the 599. So we'll cut away from Van Veltzen to catch on with the attacking point of view of things. Getting on board with Zolt Beefgarner. We quickly see here Taylor Wolford and George Todd's fight. So we'll be able to snap between the pair here. And what a delight that is, as the menu navigation in this game is incredibly bad. And otherwise would have had us scrambling like a chicken with no head. Out through to Crocodiles, and the 599, 0.4 of a second away. Taylor Wolford, 0.6 of a second ahead of George Todd. You can see him clawing around the back of that Porsche. Had issues through the S's in his previous pursuits of the number 6 Porsche. Down the opening straight, this is a vulnerable area for Van Veltzen. You can see that's exactly why he's darted over to the left-hand side of the track. He's going to tuck back in, possibly to the right-hand side in a moment's time. All of this is in efforts out through turn 1 at the kink, just to cut off a little bit of momentum from the 599. He knows he's got him in the slipstream. There's not really an awful lot that can be done for Van Veltzen in terms of straight line speed. Mercedes are quite bang average for straight line speed. We see a bit of upset though through turn 5. The front axle there, I did see it. The front axle on the 599 locked up for Zolt Beefgarner. He's been running this very, very close knit. And the 599 starting to struggle a little bit as we head towards the final 10 minutes of racing. As we see here with Zolt Beefgarner's point of view, we'll stay on with him. Because of the slight connection issues, it doesn't show him having actually used the window wiper, so we'll be stuck on the external cameras in the nature that we want you to actually see what he sees. You saw again that huge front end lockup. Stopping power massively reduced here. He's having to be a lot more careful on the brakes with the Lexus. In dry conditions, it's much less of an issue, but we are far away from that being a possibility now. In the final 10 minutes of racing here in Kyalami, the rain very much so has been here to stay for what has been nearly an hour and a half of racing. The first Sunday League race of 2026 has kicked off with absolute cinema here in South Africa. We're still not done just yet. 10 minutes to go. Far enough away now to where evasive maneuvers are not required for Van Veltzen. We see from Beefgarner's point of view, he can accelerate up to him, but he's only really in the hopes to maybe generate about an extra 10th as we get down towards turn 2. Even then, there's the chances that could fizzle away up through the Juxke sweep. As we've already seen, this area is practically slick for drivers so far. It was one of the chief reasons earlier on this race why Vermaak lost what was a starting lead. He had a brilliant start over the leading, then leading Porsche. He was stuck behind him, forced onto a fight between Bajor and Warner on the remainder of those podium positions. We'll catch on with these two in due course. Let's take a look here. And the other fight going on, Taylor Wolford and George Todd, they're down through the Crocodiles. We'll stay on board with the defending of two here. Taylor Wolford with VEC Esports. Currently, this is in the fight for 8th place. Let's just go ahead and fix that. Vaguely make out the image there of a 296 over the rear view of the Porsche for Taylor Wolford's number 6 VEC Esports Porsche. Out through turn 5. Hanging around in the background and stuck in the spray of that Porsche. It's not done Todd many favours this late on. Of course, he did play with a very ambitious comeback drive. He's looking for it. He's looking at potentially some shock and awe tactics as well to try and gain position here, knowing that the advantage he's had for maneuverability is all but nullified when put toe-to-toe with the Porsche. It's the one other car on this grid today capable of outturning him. McLaren a much more minor presence on this grid. Porsche have really taken the limelight so far. 3 Porsches in the top 10. Meredith up in front in 7th. And then, of course, Alan Alexander in that leading pair, leading this race at the moment. And soon to potentially, if things stand as they are in the next 7 minutes, give Porsche their first ever Sunday League win. Actually, just something to pick up on very briefly. We'll look back to the race wins here. Van Veltzen with Mercedes. Now, this is something we failed to pick up on, but that's also history defining. That is the first ever win for Mercedes AMG. Looking at our records here, that does mark it as the first ever Mercedes AMG win. So back in that discussion from before, that this is on the advent of Porsche getting their first ever Sunday League win. I think we failed to recognise that because it was such an ecstatic race for Van Veltzen, his second career win. It was such a brilliant, brilliant drive from him in Monza, that we failed to pick up on the fact that, yes, that very much so was Mercedes' first ever Sunday League win in 4 seasons of competition. Admittedly, it was hard to remember those statistics when, in terms of manufacturers, it was buried on all sides by McLaren, courtesy of Milliston. Yeah, that's something to take away from all of this as well. 6 minutes left to go. We're still watching with Wolford and Todd in that fight for 8th place. The Ferrari getting closer and closer and closer in towards turn 10. He's going around the outside later on the brakes, potentially going for a later apex, but will he have the room to do so? Very, very likely here. Still close, putting constant pressure on Wolford. We know in terms of stopping power how confident Porsche can be in the right hands. Let's see if Wolford's got what it takes. Heading down towards the Crocodiles here. He's going to hold centre mass of the road. Slowly teetering his way into the left-hand side, but same in the distance that we got from Tyler Vermack. He's caught up on the washout through turn 13. In through turn 14 and turn 15. Was that desync contact between himself and George Todd? It looked like desync. Let's get a look at this, though. That's not gone well. You can see how close he was to the back. I'm not 100% sure. That's very, very curious to me. I'm a little bit lost as to precisely if that was desync or not. It definitely looked like it. Either way, it hasn't done much to affect Todd. He still holds on to 9th place, but moreover, he had the chance for 8th, and he is not going to be happy about what just happened. looking around the field here. We're going to go and catch back on board with what was a developing fight from earlier on in this race. We saw it start to dissipate just a little bit here as we see Lebay being covered for position here by William Bajor, trying to get up and around him. He's in 11th place, looking at unlap from the 6th place, number 119 Aston. Let's go and catch on board with Van Velzen and Beefgartner to see where they've picked up in the absence now of fighting for 8th place. We see that the gap is starting to continue to open here for the 420 up over the 599. Meanwhile, for the front row here, still looking in and around it, it's nearly 10 whole seconds. In fact, it could actually be 10 whole seconds. 9.3 as it stands right now between Alexander and Vermaak, with 3 minutes to the line here. Looking at functionally about 2 more laps in the back pocket here, the 315, making his way onto the track. We will be on to that final lap after this one. We're on to the penultimate lap here for the 315, looking to make history, much too in the same as Van Velzen did this season for Mercedes. Alan Alexander is set to take not only his first ever Sunday League win, and this might be one of the shortest runs to it for a rookie driver, not including season 1, where all of the drivers were brand new. We'll have to check that one through the records, and we'll get a suffice update to you toward season 4, round 9. The next round coming up in Laguna Seca. Alexander does stand a lap away from the one he's on at the moment from making history to be the first ever driver to win with Porsche, the first ever rookie to win outright, and the first British race winner since Ian Skeen 2 seasons ago in Bathurst. A very special race today indeed. Race number 40 of the Sunday League since its inception back in season 1, round 1, way back when now in Misano, the first ever race of the Sunday League, back when it was only 8 rounds a season. See there, running out wide, Bajor. A little bit more trouble. It's been a race to forget here for the rookie sensation. It's been a real time in the mud. He had that drive-through penalty. He had those issues for stability as well. It has just not been his day today. Will this compromise his efforts to lead the rookies? Unlikely. He still has points on the table and in division is not too far off a decent points haul himself. So as far as staying ahead of the remaining cars on the podium, that being Sam Angel, who didn't show up to this race, and moreover staying ahead of Zolt Beefgartner, who is only going to make enough points to potentially overtake Angel at the best of times, it's unlikely he'll lose the mantle, but it will be much, much shorter, the gap between himself and the remaining cars of the rookie's wing. Back on board then with Alan Alexander in what looks to be the absence of any other fights. We will just quickly see here the 113 and the 26, but they're on separate lengths of the race. As for Van Velzen versus Beefgartner, that's still at arm's length, so we will get back on board now with the 315 for his swan song run here in Kyalami, the first race of 2026 for the NLRL Sunday League, and it kicks off with history in the making. So, to update the records here on the final lap, the twilight run in Kyalami and what has been absolutely biblical levels of rainfall here in South Africa, on board with Alan Alexander, number 315 with Euro Titans Endurance. Not only are they looking upon the chances for Euro Titans' first win as a team in the NLRL Sunday League, but looking back through history, we've had McLaren win races, we've had BMW win races, we've had Aston Martin win races, we've had Lexus win races, we've had Ford win races, and this season we've had Mercedes win races. But I think as we head out through turns 10 and 11, we're about to see Porsche onto the top step of the podium into the NLRL Sunday League history books not too far from now. It has been quite something to take away here in the opening race of 2026 in the twilight rounds of Season 4 of the NLRL Sunday League here in Round 8 in Kyalami, making his way down to the line. The first British race winner since Ian Skeen 2 seasons ago, the first ever winner with Porsche, and the first rookie ever to win outright. It's Alan Alexander, the 315 of Euro Titans Endurance, an absolute jaw-dropper. Looking at the rest of the grid, then we see damage for Sergio Belda. Vermaak fought hard, but at the end of the day, he'll take home second. Van Velzen, a valiant fight for third. Beefgartner fourth, Spencer Brown on his second race in the Sunday League in the top 5. A great result then for the 93 after the baptism of fire he and his teammate Levi Warner suffered through Alton Park at round 7. Round 8 gives him his first top 5. A brilliant result for Spencer Brown. LeBay fought through thick and thin of that top 10. And key strategy played a heavy part in his result today, and great consistency throughout. A classically LeBay drive puts him 6th place, solid points on the table, and starting to minimise the gap to an absent Melvin Milliston. 6th place for the Aston Martin. Ben Meredith in the 317, not far from the line here, in through the Crocodiles. And it's going to be quite a scene here for the Euro Titans team. Jubilation through what has been hell on earth for the twin Porsches, the 315 and the 317, both in the top 10 for Meredith's first ever race in the Sunday League. It has been a real trial for him, but he has emerged 7th place through thick and thin there. Great resolve by Meredith to the line. 7th place. Wolford, another Porsche to join the ranks of the top 10. A great drive for VEC Esports, making up for the losses there by Bajon. Nonetheless, both of them will see a top 10 finish. Wolford to the line in 8th. 9th place for George Todd. A series of ups and downs, but a solid salvage drive for the number 12. We'll get the full result in just a moment's time. The bottom line, though, history having been made. What a result then. Alan Alexander wins in Kyalami. Tyler Vermack 2nd. Cass Van Veltzen 3rd. Zolt Beefgartner 4th. Spencer Brown in 5th. Christian LeBay 6th. Ben Meredith 7th. Taylor Wolford 8th. George Todd 9th. And William Bajor in 10th. Then JM Keto 11th. Sanchez 12th. Belder 13th. Poulan 14th. Veldkamp 15th. Jenkins 16th. Cheeseman 17th. And looking at it there, Romano 18th. And looking at the rest of the field, we find at the moment, there's your wad of DNFs. Ben Hart, Levi Warner, Josh Wellbeloved, Brooklyn Donkin, Thiago Moreira, Shahan Karim, and Stefan Nikolai. What a drive that has proven to be. The first time in 2 seasons Great Britain has seen a race winner in the NLRL Sunday League, and it goes to Alan Alexander, the first ever rookie driver since the introduction of the Rookies Championship to win overall. Porsche's first ever win, and what a performance today. Taking into consideration where we'll be in the next round, we're heading on to the penultimate chapter of Season 4, Laguna Seca, on the 11th of January. Round 9, double sprint event, double points up for grabs. Will we see the return of the current defending champion in a mysterious absence from today? Only time will tell. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.